Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Return of By the Numbers, you lying dog-faced pony soldiers. I'm the other Biden, he's a Biden, we're all Bidens, we're all losing our mind. It's great to be here, and it's going to be a classic filler episode because, you know, I just realized actually, like with IEM Katowice.
Oh, there is nothing to talk about at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely nothing. Coronavirus is going to see to that as well. I think every episode's going to be a filler episode until about fucking August.
Tournaments now. Tournaments are gone.
Yeah, the tournaments are done.
I've got a
we're
question
not having
for
them
you.
anymore.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't follow politics stuff anymore because it just irritated me, and I just realised if you're not in that world, it's just better to get the fuck
Probably,
out.
mate, it took years. You know, it's giving you years back. You look more youthful.
It does. It helps.
This past year.
You just have less. Because the problem I had was you just basically feeding yourself triggers every day. So it's like I tried to just cut that down. So as a result, I only know the very most surface level stuff about the coronavirus. So this is my question for you. Yeah. Being as we are now having this constant list of things, specifically in America, but in general esports, where they're cancelling TwitchCon in Amsterdam, they're cancelling this thing in America, and then they cancel it, and it's all based on the coronavirus, right? If they're doing that now, when it hasn't even gone insane in some countries, when does it end? Like do we have to wait like a year and a half before we have events?
Well, so what typically happens? I mean, I think the World Health Organization the other day said that, you know, you now have to consider it a pandemic. I think what usually happens with this kind of things, you know, speaking as an old timer, a boomer veteran of many a pandemic that sort of lived through SARS and MERS and swine flu.
Because I remember the SARS one, and no one was going mental. Like, yeah, listen, when people watched the news, they got scared, but no one in real life was actually going nuts.
Yeah, it happened a little bit with swine flu from what I remember. Right. But again, that was like 2009, I think, if I remember rightly, with swine flu.
It sounds about right.
You get these things pop up every now and then. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I've said it before. I don't think there's any problem with cancelling events now. When it ends is, you know, we are, despite the mass panic that's kind of going on, depending on how it takes in America. Like if it goes through America like a bushfire, and everyone has, you know, every state has tens of thousands of verified cases, it'll probably keep on trucking for a little bit longer, and events will still be cancelled, and probably be right to do it for precautionary measures. But we're already seeing massive slowdown in China in terms of new cases. They're reporting like less and less new cases every day. They seem to have it contained. Same in South Korea, which was the second biggest country for a time. Same in Japan. So, you know, the Asian countries are starting to get a handle on it. It's really just sort of sitting back and waiting what happens in the US now, I think. I mean, the Italy crisis is predicated on a lot of things. And I saw the other day a lot of people. By the way, I've also been told you and me aren't allowed to talk about coronavirus, even though I'm just regurgitating things from the CDC, the World Health Organization.
All right,
there was a couple of comments like in the Reddit thread, and people are accusing me of spreading misinformation because I'm erring on the side of like maybe don't panic and beat people up for toilet paper. Like I don't know. Apparently that makes me unreasonable. But anyway, there was a lot of stuff going on in Italy, and the reason they had this huge spike in deaths, what people need to remember is Italy is one of the oldest populations in the world, certainly in Europe. People live much, much longer there in the Mediterranean. And there was like 460 deaths in Italy, and everyone was going, oh shit, like it's mutated, something else is going on.
You also have to throw in as well, surely loads of people go places like that to retire.
Yes. You know? So the Italian government put out a statement saying the average age of people who died of coronavirus was 81.4 years old.
Exactly.
So it's just like what we said previously. It thins the herd. In fact, a virologist that was on another stream, Devin Nash's stream, he was interviewing a virologist there, said 80% of people get symptoms and don't even know they've got coronavirus because the symptoms are so mild. You know, there's been 60,000 out of the 96,000 verified cases globally, 60,000 people have recovered without incident. I mean, these are the things that you would, if you were a responsible media, these are the things you would put out front and center. But people aren't doing that. So where does it end? I mean, you know, I think by the summer. I honestly think by the summer.
Not that bad.
This is sort of a distant memory. But for now, esports is going to get kicked in the balls, unfortunately.
Because this was one thing I wanted to ask, because obviously it ties into esports, and this is industry stuff that we can talk about.
Yeah,
sure. People will think that the impact it's had is the cancelled events or the people not being able to have crowds, etc. The first thing I saw that alarmed me was where like MTG stock was down like 25% or something insane, coupled with, you know, the whole economic collapse generally. But Like, people don't realize when you're a company like they are, where they were desperately trying to sell the esports properties, I could imagine that might actually completely change the entire way they operate. They might have to make like some crazy move now. Maybe they'll have to sell parts of it immediately. Like, what do you think? Is it that big a deal? Because as far as I know, stock is like God to some of these companies.
I mean, again, like, so the one area of I wouldn't sort of feel comfortable talking about for sure, just due to my own lack of knowledge, is kind of like the stock market and stuff. I mean, we saw that the Dow Jones was down massively because of coronavirus panic, and everyone's trying to come up with a stimulus package to kind of revitalize the economy right now. So, I mean, all I'll say is that it's definitely going to be a factor, but their stock had fucking plummeted long before this was an issue. Sure. And they're kind of getting swept up in something that's like happening globally right now. There's definitely I think it was just announced today in that the Lanxess arena was canceling any event where more than 1,000 people were gathering at once.
Remember, guys, ESL Cologne's in early July every year, so they might just get around with that. They might just get lucky if they're really...
Yeah, so I literally just saw that when I was prepping the show.
Because that's the thing I hadn't even thought of. Mate, can you even imagine what this year will look like if Katowice and Cologne get fucked for ESL? That's actually a nightmare.
Yeah, let me just see if I can get a source for that for Sam.
Because you think about it, those are the two flagship events. Those are the ones that they need. In fact, the whole thing about those events as well is it's all about the crowd. That's what everyone loves. They're always popping off for the crowd. So if you have both of them get fucked like that, it's not going to kill the whole thing, obviously. But like, even just perception-wise, it is going to cripple you.
Yeah, and then this is where it's like, fucking, what can you do about this? It's one of these things where it's like, unfortunately, it's almost like the price that you pay for having sort of a global society, right? Like, you can't,
sure,
we're not insular. People do have free travel and freedom of movement around the world. And when coronavirus was first sort of coming out of Wuhan, got you all in check. Shout out to Busta Rhymes. Why not, right? What started happening was, we knew that there was a fucking, new virus. We didn't know what was going on with it, but we weren't shutting down. For example, we had Chinese New Year at that time. I mean, that would have been an unmitigated disaster. And there was a lot of places like Las Vegas, where I live, that make a lot of money around that time, and people were just traveling back and forth. I mean, and people didn't seem to have the same panic set in that they do now, because one or two countries have kind of dealt with the crisis poorly. The reality about the Italian situation as well, by the way, if you go look at some of the insanity that was going on over there, like how there was coronavirus in a prison, and two prisoners died or something, and then there was a mass prison riot and they burnt their way out of the prison, and
that sounds like some shit of a movie.
Oh no! Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fucking insane. And anyone who lives in Italy or has been to Italy recently, let's not pretend they had like a very robust healthcare system there anyway, right?
They were already in trouble anyways.
Yeah. I mean, like, they've suffered. They suffered quite a bit with everything that was going on with the collapse of the Eurozone and everything else. So, look, at the end of the day, I think as it relates to esports, I think what's good about esports is actually, as an industry, we're in a much more robust position than some other industries are, and because obviously we do a lot of our business online. I mean, the principal viewership isn't what you put in a stadium.
No, that is the part that people did miss, is like, listen, obviously it did affect people's viewership online to not have a crowd at Katowice, because, piping in the crowd noise and seeing people play to the crowd is part of it. But to be fair, 99.9% of the viewers, in fact more than that, are watching online. So you are right. In some ways, we can get around it in a way that you can't if you're like a football event or something.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. Like, I think what's going to happen in North America over the next few months will echo a lot of what we've seen. Serie A games have been cancelled in Italy. Premier League games so far have been going ahead, despite Britain potentially being, negatively, not in a great position with the collapse of the NHS and the years of austerity and everything else. But I think eventually we'll probably see some, games cancelled and played behind closed doors. And I imagine North America will kind of, if the cases continue to spread and expand. And at the moment, I think there's been a state of emergency declared in LA and in New York. They've had 140 or 145 confirmed cases last time I checked, with 14 people being hospitalized. And I think Mayor Cuomo came out and said to everyone, like, don't panic, this is fine, we're on top of things. But, you know, if it does continue to spread, like NBA, NFL games, well, that actually won't be in season, so you don't have to worry about NFL, but NBA games, certainly, you could see a few of those played in empty stadiums. I think that's like a realistic possibility. But honestly, I don't know. I see a lot of people panicking online, and I see a lot of misinformation. And the reality is the CDC, the World Health Organization, any statistical analysis, any doctor will tell you that if you're a healthy person under 60, if you, any hospitalization or even death is like such an incredible statistical outlier that what it does is it preys on people that have underlying respiratory problems, underlying health problems, and are 60 or above.
That's why it's funny that you say that. It's funny because the way you nailed it is exactly what I've seen online in the brief things I have seen, which is anyone who suggests it's not the worst thing ever, they're the ones spreading misinformation. But the person just telling you we're all going to die, that's perfectly reasonable, because why would that cause a panic or people to do fucked up things? Even though, as you say, like, think about how they even present it. Like, you know this, it's one of the saddest facts of modern journalism, which is any time they purposely give you as little info as possible, they're trying to trick you. They're trying to not give you info that be context. So I noticed they love to tell you the total number of people who die without any context. So they make it sound like it's just a chance. Like, oh, but if 1,000 people get it, then what, me and you could just be in the 20 that die? It's like, well, no, because as we just explained, it's not like it's of the 1,000, someone rolls a fucking roulette wheel and then randomly people just die. As you say, it's actually going to be of the 1,000 people, it's going to be specific people who die. That's just the reality. But people are going out their way to make it feel like everyone's at danger in that sense.
And the key thing is as well, it's in because of it's not like some super airborne. You know, it's
exactly. It's not like a movie thing, like fucking Resident Evil or something. Come on.
You get it off a surface. You're more likely to get it off a surface or direct, contact with somebody that's infected. Even direct contact with somebody that's infected. Like somebody in the chat put it there again, according to the CDC. You've got a 0.2. If you're under like 35 or something, you've got a 0.2% chance of even contracting it. It's not like it's some mad rampant virus that everyone's getting. It's not fucking World War Z. But yeah, it's just like, unfortunately, we have a media machine that encourages panic when what the panic does in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of any new virus that's spreading, before we get a vaccine, before we get a handle on it, and it could be a while before we get vaccines. I think the one bit of misinformation I've ever spread is that I was like optimistic that we would have a vaccine in the next few months, which apparently is very unrealistic. Antivirals could certainly tackle it and help slow the spread and maybe get rid of it altogether, but a vaccine probably won't be with us for a year or maybe even two. But anyway, just so we don't make a coronavirus podcast, do you want to see a funny clip about the sort of panic that's going on in America right now? We can 3, 2, 1 this. There it is for you, Sam. This buckled me when I saw this. Basically what I'm doing is I've been getting a supercut of all of the news relating to coronavirus, so me and Sam can do a funny podcast about it. So just let me know when you're ready to cue this up, and we'll all watch this one.
1-0. Ready?
Okay, you ready, Duncan?
3, 2, 1, go.
An employee is quarantined right now. They're just trying to see if the person will be developing any symptoms.
Nobody want their child to be sick. Nobody want to take their virus to their house.
Parents of children at Treadwell Middle and elementary schools are not playing around. Many wipe their kids down, and some even sprayed them with disinfectant.
As if.
School sure did, gave them gloves, sure did.
Parents are curious after they found out an employee who works at Treadwell Middle and elementary.
She sure did.
Wait for it. Gets better, dude.
For the coronavirus in Memphis.
Why?
As if. Why though? What's that? You've got a bag hanging off your ankle.
The people who do think that like wearing a hazmat suit is the answer are just mentally ill. Like there is something wrong with that.
That's what they do in Monsters Inc.
Probably not going to get it, like, but anyway. So that's the state of what's been going on because of the media-driven kind of hysteria. So it's like I tell everybody, you want to be responsible about coronavirus. Wash your fucking hands, you dirty bastards. Keep unnecessary physical contact with strangers down.
What were they spraying in the guy's face though? Like fucking
Lysol.
No,
To the eyes.
right, close your eyes. There's no way that can be good for your skin.
It
There's no way.
burns.
There's no way that can be good for you. I'm sure it says on the bottle, don't put on your skin.
No, I know. Like that, yeah, it's fucking unreal. Some of the shit I've seen. So yeah, keep an eye out for that show, guys. It's going to be straight fire. Like there was even a South Korean doomsday cult which were deliberately spreading the infection. I don't know if you saw that.
That was some movie level shit as well. Like,
yeah. I mean, there's just been some insane stories come out because of coronavirus. So anyway, we'll do a full episode on that. First thing we'll do. Because just in case we cut all that bit out, who fucking knows what's suitable and what isn't? By the way, YouTube demonetized you immediately if the algorithm detects the word
Holy
coronavirus.
shit, really?
In it. Yeah. Because they claim they're trying to curb
People
the spread of
selling stuff, I
misinformation
suppose.
by not allowing people to make money by having an intelligent conversation about it. So
Pretty sure all
So
the
just-
CNN clips probably stay up though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, of course. You mean YouTube, a company that's been slowly taking the U out of the fucking tube, for the past couple of years. So it is just clips of corporate media. Yeah, who knew? Anyway, this show's going to be a fucking conspiratorial night. InfoWars with Duncan Shields, Richard Lewis, Alex Jones got picked up
I
for
saw
a
that.
DUI
Actually.
last
I
night.
did see
yeah.
that.
So I can't wait for him to say the lizard people did that to him. That's going to be brilliant. Anyway, shout out to the sponsor. .com. Obviously, are a great sponsor right now. They're currently rejigging their new offers. There used to be one where you deposited $100. They would match up to $100 if you deposited $100. They're not doing that right now. They're going to hit us with a new offer, but you can still go and support them. Obviously, if there's any esports events that are allowed to happen globally, you can go and place a bet in a safe, ethical environment over there where you are going to get your money, you are going to get a return. So just go over to .com/RLS. They did buy the beep, but I always forget how many E's it's got. They did buy the
I think
beep
about 8.
URL. 8 E's?
I
Beep
think
with
so.
8 E's?
That's quite
So
a
you can
clever
go there
idea,
and-
though. Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely, and that automatically will show that you came from here as well. It's like they've built the affiliate code into it. So anyway, yeah, check it out for sure.
By the way, just as a random aside, did they? I know. Listen, even being famous or being a company doesn't actually help you when you deal with the massive, like megalithic tech companies. But could they not, as a company, in any way, like appeal all that shit happen to you and basically get it all fixed? Was there no route for that?
I think they reached out and got like just zero response. I mean, you have to understand it's like I've been saying for ages with this YouTube stuff. It's so selectively enforced. Like I go over to Dota channels that have like 3 million subscribers, and you would think the more subscribers you have, the more visible it would be to someone at YouTube. They have gambling sponsorships.
Where
no
the
one
fuck?
cares.
Do you think even a single one of those HLTV.org videos that to this day still contains the intro saying "Get rich fast" have ever been taken? Of course not. Not a single one ever.
What I think happened, because we'll make this the first story. Fuck it, we will talk about something vaguely CSGO related today. Obviously, there's a guy called Vital. He makes the what's it called, the
CSGO
Rewind videos every
and a
year.
lot of other
It's basically a collection of clips from the year. It's put into a montage. They're very popular. They're very well done. And I think he's a good content creator. He's got about 150,000 subs on YouTube. Well, a lot of people have been waiting for his 2019 Rewind. It came a little bit later in the year than it usually does because he put some extra work into it. And then boom, it's just gone. It's not there anymore, and it's not there because he had a sponsor, which isn't even a gambling site, on the intro. And he appealed the decision, and he got told, no, this site doesn't meet our guidelines. Now, what's really interesting is, because this has happened to me, when we had to strip out, when that happened, we had to go through all of our videos, blur everything out, delete everything, or we were going to lose like 50% of the episodes by the numbers have been flagged, right? So we would have just lost all that to history. If we didn't have backups on Sam's hard drive and my hard drive, they're just gone. When a video is deleted off YouTube, it just goes. So what then started happening was I was looking at the ads that would be run on those shows, and it would be for gambling sites. So when I talked to YouTube about it, I said, what the fuck gives with that? You're deleting my sponsor, which has cost me, money. And then you're running ads for similar sites over the top. So it's not an ethical thing, is it? And they go, but if YouTube runs an ad, this is what they told me completely with a straight face. we have vetted that company. So we understand that it meets our standards. So I'm like, okay, but so there's sites that I know are dubious, but because they're willing to go through ads, YouTube's ads program, you know, they're fine. But if you're not willing to pay YouTube a massive cut just to get that privilege, in other words, independent gambling sponsors are done. It completely ravaged the poker scene as well. Because so there was they had the apocalypse or whatever the fuck they were calling it on Twitter, where loads of poker videos got demonetized, deleted, channels got shut down. And the worst part about it is this is like YouTube do this arbitrarily, selectively, you no forewarning. You just wake up and find that it's gone. Now, fortunately, I was well connected enough at YouTube that I was able to talk to a real person on a phone and actually get it resolved and get my channel reinstated and get all the strikes took off if I met their criteria. But the average person isn't juiced in like that, and the average person isn't going to have that, and that's what's happened to Vital. He's made one appeal, probably handled by an algorithm, and he's been told to go fuck himself. So he produces this awesome bit of content, which is well-liked every year, and high chance it's probably demonetized because it's about Counter-Strike. So he has to make nothing on that now, according to YouTube. He's not even allowed to have a sponsor for it. What a fucking joke.
And even if he had made all the ads, like the amount of time, this is one of the reasons, by the way, if people don't know, why Frag Movies also died out. Like there's a lot of other reasons, like they can't use the copyright music, which was half the appeal, that everyone's seen the frags. Everyone knows the basic answers. But one of the other reasons is, even though it was never about making money in the past, because we now have these platforms where people can make money, well, the problem is, like, I might end up making the same amount of money for a Thorin's Thoughts that really was just, a guy just talking to a webcam for 15 minutes.
I know.
Hopefully eloquently, but at times I'm sure some of them are throwaway. That guy's some of those guys probably putting like 100 hours in some of those videos. And then what, they're going to get like $200 or $50 or what? Like that can't work as a compensation scheme.
No, it doesn't encourage good work. And I've been saying this for a while. The unfortunate truth about YouTube creation is it's not worth starting today. It's just not. Like if you don't have an already established channel and you want to be like a YouTuber or you want to be a content creator, you're probably better off just jumping into streaming. You're probably better off like just making throwaway stuff on TikTok if you want to blow up, frankly. There is absolutely no value in trying to create a YouTube channel today. I mean, first of all, what you have to do to even get into a position to be able to make money on YouTube is harder than it's ever been. Then you have the problem that there's a saturation of content and YouTube discovery is ass. Unless you know how to use all the metadata and everything, you never get them recommended. Then you also have the fact that at least it used to recommend, endemic creators back in the day. Now it recommends your MSNBC, your CNN, your Foxes, your fucking Steve Colbert's, all the corporate shit that YouTube was meant to be the alternative to is now what they push front and center. And don't even think about having a different take or an idea about something. They'll just now put a label on saying that this video contains misinformation and then demonetize you and then recommend those same corporate sources that make billions anyway on your videos, so you don't make any money from it, and then they redirect people away from your content. I mean, being a YouTuber these days is absolute garbage. YouTube trending has been proven to be, in the US at least, human curation. So what they've decided is, and they've also as well publicly admitted, we don't recommend videos and we don't push out videos into trending that we think are potentially borderline dodgy and edgy. So you have ridiculous situations where Joe Rogan has been massively suppressed in the US because of this pathetic myth that he props up the alt-right and other hate groups and stuff. Yeah, no, it's just fucking tedious, isn't it? Yet when he interviewed Bernie Sanders, that was a #1 trending video for about 3 fucking days. So, it's again, when you play ball, you are allowed to make money, to have status, and it goes right the way up. You have to understand that once you're in that alternative media pipeline, the corporate media for the last 5 years have been slowly chipping away your ability to have a platform because they don't like it. They don't like anyone else delivering a message to millions of people that might deviate a little bit from corporate interests. So obviously that doesn't apply to me. I'm a much smaller YouTuber. I'm not even really a YouTuber. I just use YouTube now as a receptacle for my streams, which I chop up. You can go and get them there if you missed it live. But yeah, and it's just, there's just no point in doing it anymore. And honestly, there's a reckoning coming, I think, for esports content. Think about this. How many tournaments are sponsored by gambling sites?
Oh, there's loads of VODs that if they go, I can tell you right now, like one of the things I gave up on years and years ago, I just don't even bother asking now, is right. So here's a perfect example. When in the end of 1.6, I did a bunch of commentary for ESL for the IM brand, and most of those VODs never came to YouTube because at the time they were all shared on, I think it was actually Own3D. I think that was what they used to use for ESL back then. So obviously they lost them all when that site disappeared. So I always used to initially, for the first couple of years, we talk like 2013 or something, I would always reach out to Joe Miller and people and just say like, are we ever going to get these VODs up? Like, come on, like some of these are classic matches, mate. And they would always be like, I don't know, like, someone would have to get them off a hard drive and then upload it. And what I realized is because people like ESL have way too many VODs that are like current VODs that they're putting up, they'll just never get to that. There'll never be a workflow that involves someone putting up old VODs. Well, God forbid that they delete loads of the VODs again. We could be talking, by the way, about as recently as a few years ago, because I don't think they'll ever get replaced. I think it'll just be gone forever. So that's terrified. I think some of the huge tournaments that could be gone.
Yeah, and as we've seen, I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big you are. It's if you don't have the connections over at YouTube, then you're not going to be able to get through and remedy it. So I think there's like lots of content that we are realistically facing, potentially losing, over the next certainly in 2020. And it's also a potential economic issue because while these companies, like ESL Mate doesn't really give a fuck about its YouTube VODs or its YouTube channel, it doesn't monetize it, I'm sure, and it doesn't make any money off it. If it does, it's very little. It's a drop in the ocean. But it might start impacting on the type of sponsorship that they take should they want to do deals, for example, with YouTube and stuff like that. So. We're still on the precipice of an economic issue as our reliance on gambling sponsors, in particular in esports, now is being pushed back upon by some of the big, media platforms. Fortunately, Twitch have got some common sense and realize that a lot of us have to take the money sort of where it is in esports. And if there's one industry that wants to sponsor us, you got to make it sure if you've got to make an ethical assessment about the sponsors that you work with and whether or not they're viable for your ethical compass. But I think honestly, I think we're in for an interesting 2020 because YouTube aren't going to budge on it. They've made it abundantly clear these types of sponsors you cannot have. They can't have pre-roll, mid-roll. You're not allowed any of it. Or they'll just delete your video and delete your channel. So it's fucked up. Bad times. Anyway, there was one event we didn't talk about,
What was that?
It was in February. End of February. DreamHack Anaheim.
Oh, right. Yes.
We didn't talk about it. And I thought, it might be interesting to talk about it because obviously it had some ups and downs, some thrills and chills.
It actually was, I think, the best field I've seen at a DreamHack Open in many years now.
Well, I mean, certainly it was an interesting one, right? And for me, some storylines that were kind of continuations of what we've been talking about for a while. I watched the tournament. I don't know how much you saw. It was sort of just before Katowice. It was literally a few days before. So let's pick up on some of the stuff. I mean, first of all, Ence. It's got to be said. This is one of our ongoing storylines right now. They finished joint last. They were in a group with, for those that don't remember the tournament, with MIBR, Complexity, and Gen G. So particularly tough field, all things considered. It was probably the harder group as things panned out over the course of the tournament. Also, do want to add that the format was best of ones on day one. So obviously anything can happen in a best of one. But let's just do a recap of their result. They lost a very narrow game on Nuke to Gen G, 16-14. They lost 2-1 to MIBR in a best of 3 to go out of the tournament. So realistically, the way that the DreamHacks are structured, they're designed to be very, quick, fast-paced, best of 1s on the first day. So not an optimal format by any stretch. But any team right now that's losing a best of 3 to MIBR is fucking dog shit. There's no getting around it. It's
actually the only best of 3 that this MIBR with Mayan has ever won on LAN.
Well, there you go then. I mean, that tells its own wretched story. We'll talk about MIBR in a minute. But yeah, I mean, listen, the Ence situation, one of the things that's pissing me off about Ence, right, is that they're all out there publicly talking about, well, remember how they, coming into DreamHack Anaheim, they had a new approach? Do you remember that? The coach came out and said, we've got a new approach. Brilliant. Really worked out for you. It's the way that this oblivious, everything's fine. We'll work through it. We're going to get back to where we were. Like, at what point are you just going to accept you had the number 2 team in the world at one point and you completely and utterly fucked it up based on some petty bullshit, and now you're going to have to absolutely scramble to insane levels to try and fix this? Also, I think it's probably safe to assume now we can say, Alu, love you, brother, like, really, but come on, man, you ain't no in-game leader. You ain't no in-game leader.
Oh,
if it's coming out in interviews that, you're still using Alexi B's tactics and you're using them badly, and you're talking about this new approach and you're still going out and losing games. There's also the meme about them having fun. So yeah, it's for me, like, they need to start scrambling and fixing this team. I don't even know what you do, but this move has been an absolute disaster, and now it is time for a roster change. If you're going out dead last at a fucking DreamHack from being the number 2 team in the world, that's like a fall from grace, like almost nothing we've seen in CSGO.
Oh, the wild thing is, like, I totally get why they were playing, like, because remember, if you play these DreamHack Opens, if you win, you get an invitation to the Masters, right? So in this case, you would have gone to DreamHack Masters Jönköping, even though why is that a Masters? But we'll put that to one side. I had a BC tried on Twitter, like, try and clip, Thorin, but actually it isn't a downgrade. Like, shut the fuck up, bitch. First of all, your life is a downgrade that you still work at DreamHack and your fucking peak events, that your big calendar events, an event in Jönköping. Fuck your life. Fuck your life. Get in a time machine and go back, and then that'll be cool. So anyway, right? So obviously that's the reason I get why teams like MIBR and Ence go, because they're at the position now where they're not going to get invited to a DreamHack Masters. Like, they're actually in a bad fucking spot. So the problem is there is a reason to go, but aside from winning the first place and getting that ticket, you can only lose at this tournament, because it's one thing when you come last at a stacked event like Katowice. People go, well, some of the best teams in the world. Mate, you're not getting out the group stage at fucking DreamHack Opens. Like, this is and then who's beating you? Is it some other 10, like maybe Force was in your group? No, it's Genji and Call. Like, you're a fucking joke. Like, it just makes you look as bad as possible. It really does.
Yeah.
You can't recover from that. The optics are impossible to beat on that.
No, but just think about it as well. Like, so the event prior to this was that Ice Challenge they did at the start of February, where they got 2-0'd by OG, 2-0'd by Godsent to go out of the tournament. Then you go to the qualifier for Katowice they couldn't get through, where they were dropping maps to, what was it, Illumina and AGO. It's like 2020 has been, the start of 2020 for Ence has been worse than the end of 2019. Like, it's not even that you hit rock bottom and you're working.
Oh, they're worse. Yeah.
Yeah, you're worse now. You're actively worse. I haven't even looked where they are in the world rankings.
Oh, it's going
to make me feel bad.
I bet it's like 30th or something. Let me have a look here. It's got
it's not even, like, apparently they're clinging on 21st. But here's the madness. MIBR are below them. They're losing to them. North are below them. They would lose to them. I'm looking at that.
I will say, here's why. Remember, HLTVs takes a longer time span.
Yeah, because of the
Well, remember, they made like the final of that CAC, that fucking Chinese Asian thing that I went to.
Oh, yeah.
So that probably props them up a little bit and saves them from...
Back when you could have events in China. Do you remember that?
Exactly.
Do you remember those days long ago? Yeah, you remember that? Do you remember those times? But yeah, honestly, I mean, look, listen, I don't know what you do. The problem was, when this reeks of management failure, because when they hit a working 5 Finnish players that were capable of beating the elite level teams and being the number 2 team in the world, somebody at that fucking org has to get up, and whether it's Lurpus or whoever the fuck was in charge over there, somebody has to go, guys, listen, I don't think you realize we have struck fucking gold. This is insane. We were never meant to be competitive. The Finnish scene isn't competitive. It doesn't have the strength in depth that other scenes do. We don't have the population other countries do. Like, what we have here, we've got to get this locked in. And no matter what the fucking problems are, no matter what minor bump in the road we hit, we have somehow got to fucking keep going and keep on trucking, because we will never have this again. And we talked about Sonny was eventually maybe going to go there. Nobody ever said for Alexi B. That was never discussed publicly. Why would you take a star player in free agency and fucking say, well, you know what, we need to cut in Ence, right? Let's cut our fucking in-game leader. Nobody ever said that. No, the community is fucking dumb sometimes, but nobody in the community was dumb enough to say, I think we should cut Alexi B. Nobody was ever saying that ever. So the fact that Ence management fucking decided, just out of the blue one day, and it's like, say, over what? Over what? Like, what? He's got an ego, or you had an argument, or, he didn't share his snooze with you. Like, fucking grow up, man. This reminds me of that Fnatic team, when that fucking legendary Fnatic team, kind of started to break apart. And it's like, if you ever talk to those players about the petty bullshit that drove it, they're almost a little bit embarrassed about it, frankly.
No, it's a perfect case of, like, it's not just even grass is greener thing. It's that you don't realize how good you had it. That's the key part. Is like, you think you had problems. You didn't even have the beginning of problems, mate. You just couldn't be number 1 in the world. That's it. Like, you sometimes lost to Team Liquid. Those were your problems. Like, chance would be a fucking fine thing for those to be your problems again. I'll tell you a very quick esports related anecdote. That's exactly what you were talking about, which is the classic League of Legends team, Moscow 5, the one that became Gambit Gaming, right? When they had these 5 specific players, they had amazing success. Something like every LAN except one, they never failed to finish top 4 or like win the tournament, make the final. Like, they had an amazing track record. And this is what's amazing, right? Is even though they were in League of Legends, and this was at the beginning of League of Legends being a competitive game, so they didn't have much experience in esports, their manager was a guy from CS. It was a guy called Groove, who used to be a player in the Russian Virtus Pro team. Like, we're talking like early 2000s now. And crucially, because in his teams, they used to be the team where when they had a bad LAN or someone fell out with someone, they would cut a guy and recruit someone else. And then, years later, you would never recruit that guy back because you realize he was a good player, and then you got over your issue. So what he told these players was, because it turns out, even though they were mega successful in League of Legends, they actually the whole time, it turns out, had all these personal differences. Like, this player hates this player, or this guy said something about his girlfriend, or these two just don't play the way the other guy thinks they should. But he just kept telling them all, don't fuck this up. Like, if you make even one player change, you'll never get this back again. And what's insane is he was totally right across the board, because not only did staying together give them all this success, but literally when they changed even one player out, they just started to go straight down. And it was not about, as you can imagine, again, it's not even that the one player was like the best player. It's like, you never break that chemistry when you've got it. And so the idea that like a team like Ence, the reason it's so crazy for me with the Ence one is, if we're going to contrast it like you did there with the classic Fnatic lineup, I at least get that one, because that one's like, they were on top of the world, and they had some of the greatest players ever. So they had the hubris to believe we can bring in another guy and still do it. But what's mad about the Ence one is, it was about not that long ago, over a year from now, that they were a fucking nobody team still rising, and then they hit their stride now. So what's crazy is, it's like the hubris to then think you can just chop and change, and the pieces key is the agile, is just absolute insanity. And the idea it came from the most veteran voice in the team is so disappointing if you know Alo and you respect his career, because he, quite frankly, is the primary person who's fucked this up as far as I can tell.
Well, let me tell you, it is going to be a matter of time before we see Sergey decide he wants to leave, decide he wants to go in free agency, decide he wants to go and play in an international lineup. I'm sure there's many lineups that would like to take him there. I could see him ending up maybe going to OG and replacing somebody over there. I think that's like something that can realistically happen, that Alexi B could come back and get, his protege.
Oh, for people who don't know, I'll say this. Based on things I heard, it wasn't even that. Like, here's another scenario that would be reasonable, right? If literally the other 4 players came to you as the org and said, this guy has to go, then yeah, sometimes you pull the trigger on a move even you're questionable about. As far as I heard, it was literally 1 or 2 people wanted him gone. So as a result, what you're saying is probably actually a real potential thing. Like, I'm sure some of them now are thinking, why did I let them convince me we should kick this guy? So if some of those guys are in a position where they could go to OG, why not? Like, then they probably want to reunite with him. He was the one. It now looks like he was the reason for their success. I know that's probably going too hard the other way, but as a player, you could easily think that if you're a young guy.
Yeah, and I think you've got to remember as well, like when you're in that position and you're young, you're playing incredibly well, rookie of the year, all of these accolades, and then you're in a team that's clearly dysfunctional, and like, trust me, a young guy is going to get itchy feet a lot faster than an older guy. An older guy's like on the downslope. I mean, fuck, what am I going to do? Leave this team and then retire? Like, maybe never get picked up again? So they're more like play internationally. If teams like Complexity is swooping in, there's teams out there that are going to take Sergey in a heartbeat. So I think what you need to look at here is, like, how much longer has Ence got left if they don't change something that all the remaining players can get on board with?
And there's the other part.
Not very long.
That's also what amazes me is they don't themselves even seem to give any indication they actually understand how bad it is right now. Like, they still keep pretending like they can just make out, like, I'll turn around any minute. Like, yeah,
I think it's almost got to be gallows humor at this point. They must be thoroughly like ashamed
but they must
of where
be
they're
like,
at
here's the thing,
where they were.
As a team, whether or not they lose players or not, surely you have to make a roster move yourself soon. I mean, it's getting so, like, I know the major's coming up, so in their minds, they probably still imagine they're going to do something there. But if they don't, it has to be a roster move. Probably drastic one as well.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was somebody sent me the stat as well, that their only best of 3 wins, like in something like the last, I don't know, like 3-4 months, had only come against teams outside of the top 30.
Yeah, I mean,
makes sense. That's just like where they're at right now. So it's like, I think, first of all, they're artificially high in that global ranking. And yeah, this tournament here, it's like, you can't keep coming out and being like, oh, we're going to change things tactically, or at least we're having fun while we're playing. Like, guys, your fans don't give a fuck if you're having a good time. They're getting really sick of the fact that they support a team that's like a joke, that's an absolute fucking free fall. So you got to get your shit together. And I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I certainly hope there is like some sort of impetus ahead of the major to maybe think about a roster move, or just switch something up. I mean, even if it's a change of in-game leader at this point, the Alu experiment has failed universally, like across the board, and enough's enough. You've got to, it's like they're stuck in 2005 or something. Like in that classic Finnish way where it's like, we'll just turn up and play and see what happens. And if we smash everyone, brilliant. And that's not how professional teams need to operate. I won't bang on them too much because we got MIBR to come. So MIBR finished just above them, courtesy of that best of 3 win over them. And coincidentally, you put a video out today, right? Where you were talking about MIBR. It's time for them to go international again. I think it's a little bit different with MIBR than it is to a team like Ence, right? Because they are trying new things and they are trying roster moves. And the reality is that when you look at this team on paper, it's actually, it should be way better than it is. It
isn't though. Let's just be real. It absolutely isn't.
No, it's fucking terrible.
Also, wait a minute. You said that as though just any activities, like, there's a positive sign. Like, well, at least they're trying stuff. Listen, mate, no one's going to accept that excuse. There's certain scenarios in life where just trying shit is not an excuse.
But no, listen, they are really, really struggling, and I think it shows because you've seen the tetchiness from Fallen. When like Semler just like throwaway says like, oh, I think they lost their hunger and their fire a little bit, and he's calling them out publicly. He's going, no, we still work hard. It's like you said to him at the event, if you're working this hard and it's not fucking working at all, what does that say about you guys? Like, and it's a tough one because I'm looking at the individual levels of performance of the players that they've picked up. It's not that bad. Like KNG, I've said it before, I think when all will be said and done, we're going to look back on him And the time he had to spend out of the game because of visa issues and then behavioral issues. And now he finally gets his chance in the worst version of MIBR. I think we're going to look back on him as like an unbelievable wasted talent. And it's such a shame because he is a talent and he was a talent.
Hasn't worked in this team though. I'm with you. Like I thought he was good. I didn't think he'd single-handedly save the team, but I thought he'd at least be very good in the team. He's been mad underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some very good series, I think, and he's had some great individual moments passing the eye test. But this is the problem with MIBR right now. Where there used to be a well-oiled machine, where it was a system that was augmented by individual levels of brilliance popping up at the right time. That hasn't been the case for a while now. And in fact, you can't even see the system that's in place. And the individual moments of brilliance happen with such rare frequency right now. It's one player pops off in one series or one round. And that is not enough to win high-level games of Counter-Strike. And equally as well, if you go look at the maps, they still are dog shit on Inferno. They still can't compete on Nuke. And you're like, this is a problem that's been ongoing for, what, 12 fucking months? You know, listen, all respect for Fallen. As a person, as a player, right? All respect. I've always loved the guy. But if he's a tactical mastermind, okay, which is one of the narratives that we've heard, how can a tactical mastermind not put 5 players together that can compete on Inferno and Nuke, these important maps? It's not like they have great fundamentals on any of the other maps. But why is it that that's like the fucking Enigma code for one of the great tactical masterminds of all time? I don't
With
understand.
a lot of different lineups as well. Like, that's the thing. I can understand one lineup being bad on the map. Like, that's why like the logic made sense when they had Phelps and Fur, because they both were just fucking garbage at the B site, but you have to keep Cold Zero A because they're the best pit player in the world. So, like, some of the equation made sense then. But now we're talking about, if you add together all the lineups, they probably tried like 12 different players. They still can't figure out one map. Not only that, it's the map that almost every other good team is at least decent on. So you're also just going to get murked 24/7. And since you permaban Nuke, everyone just wins Infernal for free. So it's you can almost just see how the whole thing unraveled.
Yeah, and listen, also as well, when you look at like, bringing in Mayer to kind of, try and be this like young phenom that they've found. I mean, honestly, since he's joined MIBR, he came from Sharks, right? It was.
I think so.
Yeah, ever since he's joined MIBR, if you go look at his performances, it's not that he's had an incredible level of improvement since he's been in the team. He's had some very dodgy series in 2020 as well. He's been out of his depth a little bit in certain games. I'm trying to think of a good series he's had. I'd probably point to, seems to have played well in that complexity series here in Anaheim. But other than that, he hasn't really stood out at all. Now, listen, I'll give young players time and I'll give rosters time and everyone's got to, learn their new roles and what's going on. But honestly, MIBR is this huge brand, was meant to be the sort of great, hope of Brazilian Counter-Strike. And, here's all of the, legendary players, back with a legendary brand. And this has been one of the most disappointing kind of projects in Counter-Strike, right? I mean, it's like I said, if there was a moment in time where MIBR were poised to get some of the Furia players. And I think if that had happened at the time it was meant to have happened,
that was the move. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're talking about something completely different. But for whatever reasons, contracts, good old 5-year contracts and the golden handcuffs, although I doubt they're very golden. They're probably made of fucking bronze at best, probably tin if we're being honest about it. These people weren't allowed to move, and they weren't allowed to get the move that all parties wanted because of greed and the usual stuff in esports. And MIBR have been kind of scrambling ever since, and I just think it's just a tragedy. It's just a tragedy. But again, I don't know when you were saying about going international exactly what your solution to the problem was. But I just think MIBR are just going to be they're limping along in all these tournaments like a wounded animal. And when you can throw together 5 random players, essentially, like Complexity have, like OG has, and you can just be superior immediately on day one to MIBR with a core of players that has played together for fucking years, something is very, very wrong.
Well, basically, I'll give you the basic gist of what my suggestion was, which is basically that, as you aptly pointed out, there is nothing left for them in Brazil. If you can't get any of the other 10 best players in Brazil, you have to go for like a guy from Argentina that no one even knows. Yeah, you're in trouble at that point in time. So to me, it's not even like I'm debating like North bringing in Nico, but at the same time, he's not Danish though. Is he good enough? Would it domestic? No, you're talking about semi-pro players versus having to figure out the language scenario. So what I said is, I think basically that the experience they had with Stewie and Tarek put them off. But actually, when I hear NA players comms, NA players are notoriously bad at comms. They fucking speak English. Like, that's their native language. So what I suggested was try and get a big name talent who's like a Nordic player. Get a really good Norwegian player or Swedish player or something, but get someone who's got the talent, so you bring the firepower in and then just work with it. Because at this point in time, I don't see what options there are left in Brazil. And remember, this is one of the great things that Flashpoint is going to bring to this community, whether you like the league or not, is there's no longer the case. Unlike the Ence scenario where we said, surely they must do a roster move. They don't have to do anything. They can just be shipped for 5 years. They can have their EPL slot. They can just come last at every tournament. They can keep getting all that big sponsorship money from Finland. And it's up to them what they do. Well, I can tell you right now, MIBR right now is ranked number 25 in the HLTV rankings. And I think we're something like, 3 days away from Flashpoint beginning. So they will literally be paying that $100,000 fine. Now, when you're an org with as well funded as they are as an org, we'll soon see whether that process of finding people as an incentive works, because they're one of the teams that's on the block. Like, at this point in time, what's the point in paying 5 months? That'd be $500,000. You may as well just go and buy a player. You may as well start looking for some big talent who can turn it all around. So I'm actually excited. This is one of the teams I want to see if this system really works.
Well, so actually, while you bring up Flashpoint, and I know I shouldn't do this to you, because obviously every time you open your mouth about Flashpoint, I feel like you get absolutely fucking just disgustingly crucified by the community. But I was going to talk about it later.
They didn't listen to Jesus when he came along either.
No, that is true.
In his own country.
It wouldn't be an episode of By the Numbers if you didn't compare yourself to Christ at least once.
Except I'll never let anyone crucify me. I get away with it. That's the thing.
Okay, well, right. So it's good that we've got a great relationship where we can always be honest and earnest with each other. Because listen, it's probably not going to be what you want to hear. I'm kind of confused as to what the fuck is going on, honestly, because I know that the coronavirus thing is obviously beyond your control and there's been like a big impact.
Right.
But there was going to be 12 teams, 12 founder teams, and then there was like
10. It was going to be 10.
Sorry,
yes.
And then there was like the qualifiers were coming through, and right now what we've kind of got like, do we even have all of the teams announced yet?
Let me double check here. I was just checking because I saw HLTV did a post earlier. No, all of the teams have not been announced. But there are reports out that basically tell you almost all of them, basically.
Yeah, sure.
So you can unofficially know who they are, basically. And as you say, they won't be 10 founded teams, but
But haven't we also had like a few people drop out? Like, was it just announced that Big are dropping out or something? Or was that a thing?
Where is that like?
I don't know. Was that like today?
There is something along those lines, but I can't confirm or deny if I don't know what report we're referring to.
Yeah, I get it.
In short, though, yes,
it was DK.
Okay, there you go. Yes, there have been scenarios where teams have dropped out, or in this particular case, they announced. Part of the reason they weren't announced yet is, here's the political way you have to do it. There is a report out saying that Fun Plus Phoenix, an enormous Chinese organization that are the world champions of League of Legends, will be picking up, according to the report, the heroic roster and competing in the league. Well, as you can imagine, that deal went right down to the wire. That's the deal that's like just been done, basically. So that's where this is where I know plebs didn't get anything I was saying and just ignored it and just went, it's all just lies. Like, Did I not tell you that the signings would go down to the wire? I told everyone that in an interview on HLTV something like 2 months ago. Secondly, I said that it wasn't over as to which teams were in EPL. Well, if this report's correct, Heroic is signed to EPL. That the name Heroic is signed to EPL, you idiots, not the players. So what are they going to do in EPL? I tell you, sweet fuck all. They've got no players. There's no teams left even to sign. So I tell you, so already there's one EPL team, ranked number 14 in the world, by the way, who already is going to be in Flashpoint. So I don't know why people always want to play Insider with no inside contacts. It's the dumbest game in town. If you're a fan, by the way, speculate away. That's what it's for, being a fan.
Yeah.
But why do you always pretend you know more than the people who have literally, essentially infinite more information than you guys do? It's so silly. So I'll agree with you, by the way. The way this is being done, it's obviously far from ideal. Like, you should have had these teams announced weeks ago, ideally months ago. But you can also imagine they were initially targeting the biggest teams in the world that they didn't get, you know.
And listen, so this is where it maybe gets awkward, and you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But for me, listen, because obviously, like, you know, I like the guys over at Faceit and stuff. I'm always wondering when I see stuff like this, because we know one of the sort of things that's great about Faceit is it is a little bit rough around the edges, and sometimes that's kind of endearing. That, you know, you'll always get a delay, and you'll always get this, and you'll always get that, and but then they also do some like cool stuff, and but you know, this Flashpoint was kind of sold as being like something different, right? Like something bigger. You put your money in, you do this, you do that. It's going to be like this hermetically sealed league. We're gonna do this incredible broadcast, an incredible studio. We're gonna do all these amazing things. And, you know, if I was like just sitting and looking at all of the stories and making my own assumption that this was any other league, I would go, this is like ECS all over again. It doesn't feel any different. This is like scrambling to get teams together, people jumping in, jumping out. Teams don't seem to have got their visas together in time. And now we're using stand-in, so we're not even getting the bill of sale that we were promised. And I think overall, I don't know if it's like come around too quickly, but it shouldn't have come around too quickly because we know this has been in the works for a long time. So it's like the community, they already had their noses out of joint, you know, because it's like there's you guys there, there's the Cloud9 guys there. People are being very vocal about calling out, you know, ESL and their nonsense. And for whatever reason, the community have decided that's bad this week. But the reality is, I think a lot of people in the community are kind of looking at this, and I think they're preparing to be underwhelmed. I mean, you know, what's your take on kind of how it's all been handled so far?
Oh, I would absolutely agree. Like, put it this way, knowing what I know now, they didn't actually have enough time to do everything the way it ideally should have been done in terms of when they started the project and really started doing physical things, not just ideas. And when the first season is, like, well, Flashpoint 1 is what we call it. We don't call it Season 1. So Flashpoint 1, the first event. Yeah, in an ideal world, that probably should have been later this year. And therefore, you would have been able to do it in a very smooth manner, more as people are accustomed. But as I said, first of all, I mean, people can probably read between the lines. Flashpoint was in negotiations with some of the biggest teams in the world who weren't, by the way, like every idiot who has no information, just saying, well, I'll check all my offers and decide. No, they were literally saying, yes, we are in. Great. So, like, basically, those people absolutely lied to people's faces and even signed things that were, well, there's some questionable stuff going on there, put it out there. So you can imagine when you think you've got people and then you don't, well, you're not putting 4 replacements for one of the biggest teams in the world. Then secondly, this is the other thing. I agree. The optics look terrible because it looks like you're saying as though at the last minute, you're just trying to get anyone to buy in. Like, is there anyone want 20 spots? That's actually not the case. I can tell you right now, there was 10 founder spots right now. And at the moment, there's what? If we count FPX, that's 8, I think. If there's 8 overall, so there's 2 less. I can tell you there was more than 12 teams that had the money to buy in and wanted to buy in. The big problem is this. That's the issue where I in fact, that's a good way of framing it. That's where I think Flashpoint at the moment for Flashpoint 1 doesn't look good, which is when you hear there's going to be 10 teams, first of all, you want it to be the top 10 in the world. And then when it isn't, somehow in our brains, just because the way the human mind works, if it's not going to be the 10 best teams, second best thing is for at least there to be 10 teams. It's actually not as good to have just any 10 teams signed as it is to sign 8 and then sign 2 more later in the year. Because if you know anything about the economic side of esports, There are teams that wanted to buy in that I'm almost sure could only cover the buy-in and would have been fucked by those fines all the time. There are teams that wanted to buy in that could have bought in and paid the fines but not signed any players. There were teams that could have bought in that are shitty little orgs that no one would want to do business with. And so the problem is this. Does Cloud9 and MIBR and Gen G and FPX now, do these orgs want to work with tiny little tier 2 teams that say they can get the money and maybe can, but aren't a long-term partner? That's the problem. So I agree,
Right.
The optics are terrible because at the end of the day, you still, if you have the LCS or Overwatch, want to have all the teams initially, come hell or high water. But basically, the decision was made on this particular case that for Flashpoint 1, it's not necessarily the end of the world to not have the 10 founder teams. If it means for Flashpoint 2, Flashpoint 3, then you have the right teams. It's better to hold out than to sign a team that's rubbish now, basically. I agree that it looks terrible from the outside, and obviously there's no communication on that.
Well, yeah,
So-
it just looks like it's a fucking mad, shit show scramble to get teams together. And obviously, when you start factoring in what's going on globally with the coronavirus, I mean, it's like, don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of external stuff that like just couldn't have gone worse, and it's going to have an impact. But it's like, I don't know, man. It's starting to remind, like, I'm apprehensive because I want it to be a success, especially with everybody that's involved. But it's like you say, given that there was teams that kind of said they would and then took it back. Are there enough teams out there to go around? And this is kind of the acid test, right? Like, are some of these orgs, going to be long-term partners? Are they sustainable? Are they going to keep stable rosters together? Are they going to keep competitive rosters together? I mean, my solution probably would have been to just kind of like, fuck it, let's just throw some. I would probably go the other way to what you're suggesting. Just throw some teams together and be like, listen, okay, this is going to be the dry run. Fuck it, let's just do it and see what happens, and try and get over the finish line, rather than still trying to take what's happening now as like, we can still salvage this as the long-term project. I almost think this now has to be the throwaway. This has to be what you do as a proof of concept, that you then go back to these teams that maybe fucked you over in the past and made promises they had no intention of keeping to leverage negotiating positions. And you say, this is what we did. And if we did this for a smaller team, we can do this for you. Do you want to get in? Yes or no? And hopefully there's a bit more time.
There is some of that to it. Some of that is to the plan.
I mean, it's because it's just going to be a shame. It's like, it's gone from being this, hey, there's going to be this like, we've got the Blast and they got their, and we got EPS and we've got now we got the Flashpoint and all these super cool leagues and everyone's raising the bar. And it's like, you're looking at this and you're thinking, this is like kind of like Mountain Dew League level at the moment. And it's and it's going right to the fucking wire as well. It's like you say, I mean, like we're 3 days out and we haven't had an official announcement about the teams. And it's like, it's fine that it is going to the wire, because you've managed that expectation. But no matter how you sell it to the community are going to go, this looks disorganized.
Yeah, of course. The community only cares about the best teams and the best tournaments. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, I will say people have massively overstated how bad the teams are, though. Like,
sure. Yeah.
Mad Lions, Heroic, Gen G, right? Those 3 teams are all in the top 15. People are making out like the best teams, like 48th best team in the world. Of course not.
Which is actually good, because like we'll jump back into
and some of the orgs that aren't in that ranking. Notice the Cloud9, MIBRs. They're the orgs that are set. By the way, even the founders of the league to spend money.
But we can jump back into talking about the DreamHack results now. I just wanted to address that. I was going to address it separately, but it seemed like a good segue. So we'll just talk a little bit about, obviously, Complexity came here. I think based on what they've done results-wise, probably should have been the favourites. I expected them to make it to at least
they just dusted off Astralis and Vitality. They should be winning the tournament.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one because their run through the tournament, they got to play MIBR on day one in the best of one. They beat them. They then played Gen G. I would have expected them to beat Gen G. Obviously, we know Gen G go on to win the tournament eventually. So then they had to do the replay with MIBR, but this time in a best of 3. Very comprehensively, comfortable. Included a 16-2 on Nuke, by the way, which is why I say, like, it's embarrassing that, MIBR, that was MIBR's pick. To put that in context, when I was banging on MIBR, and
they've started picking their former permaban. That's how fucked this team is in all ways.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're getting 16-2'd on your pick and it used to be your permaban, like, you're out of shit. Like, you just have no ideas left. But anyway, so Complexity absolutely battered them. And then you're like, okay, what next for Complexity? They got Furia, so you're like, okay, well, they're going to be the Brazil Slayers, no problem here. We know Furia's problems are well documented. And what actually happened was, despite a great start from Complexity, Furia showed real tenacity, real grit on maps that you traditionally wouldn't associate with the Furia team, and were able to beat them in a best of three. Incredible individual levels of performances got them there, particularly from Yuri, who was god tier in the series. But it must have been a little bit disappointing. And I think it shows that, the confidence and the swagger is great, but this is probably, all things told, a tournament Complexity realistically should have been shooting to win if you look at the field of opposition, given the start that Complexity have had to life on LAN. Now, I won't go overboard in criticisms of them, but I think this is definitely pause for thought for them, right, ahead of bigger tournaments out there.
Well, especially because what it's shown again, and this is the thing I've mentioned it many times on the show, this is the thing I love about the Tier 2 circuit of the DreamHack Opens, is you can get their team, Furia themselves have done it, where you can beat the big dogs and you surprise them. And guess what? There's teams out there will surprise you, mate, because now you're not looking at the teams below you. And so, like, a Furia on paper wasn't supposed to beat Complexity. I mean, actually, they've got two pretty good rosters collectively, but you see, like, just because you did the number to Astralis and Vitality doesn't mean that you would automatically beat everyone below those teams. And so one of the problems I have with the Complexity lineup, which is a concern of mine, is most of the games I've seen that they've won, almost all the players are going fucking ham. Now, any idiot fan who goes, hey, that's every team that wins, isn't. It's factually not the case. Like, we know Astralis can win a game with Zipnix having the minus numbers on the scoreboard. We know they can win a game with having less kills than the opponent. Like, these are just facts. So the problem I have is I do feel as though they've got like the ultimate honeymoon period, essentially. And so I do think they're going to be a good team. Certainly they even showed it here. They're still a quality side. But people were definitely jumping the gun thinking that like what happened at Blast was just going to be like a blueprint that would repeat at all these tournaments. Like, I think also what you're seeing now is DreamHack Opens are showing us that, first of all, the difference between what we thought was the bottom of tier 1 based on rankings and the top of tier 2 doesn't exist. In fact, some of those top of tier 2 teams are better than the bottom of tier 1 teams. It's just that some of them have a big name, some of them get invited to the events, some of them can maybe only play against other top teams. I mean, one of the interesting things about when you play a top team is there almost is an unwritten gentleman's agreement of like, this is how the game is played. You don't do certain things. Like, famously, the thing people always used to diss NA teams is like, you're just being all scrimmy and just doing random stuff. Like, the whole point is a top team doesn't do that typically. So, like, I certainly do agree with you. After the result they had at Blast, like, at a minimum, they should have been in the final here, if not win the tournament.
Yeah.
As you said, Genji hadn't even played on LAN yet. So I agree, they should have won the tournament. But I also think this is probably a good little wake-up call to temper the expectations.
Yeah, it's probably better they didn't win the tournament for the long-term health of the team, honestly, and they realize that they've still got some work to do, no doubt about it. And if you go look at how they played in the Europe minor qualifier, it definitely seems to have worked, right? I mean, they were really, really solid in that. We should have some time to talk about that a little bit later on.
With that said, though, I will say in Complexity, while there are a lot of elements I think might level off or might have to be like legitimately built up, not just win off a one-off game, that guy Poison is the fucking truth, though. That guy is what a
listen, I'm loving this next generation of like god tier AWPers that are coming along right now, and just I think we've been in a sweet spot for kind of like bringing youth through overall. But like Poison's a legit phenom. Like, I mean, when you think that of all the countries, it's Bulgaria that has produced the two sort of next generation great AWPers in the form of Cirque and Poison. That probably would have sounded like utter fucking madness.
Oh, of course,
had you suggested that, like, even, I don't know, like 9 months, 9, 10, 12 months ago, that like, oh, we'd get a Cirque 2 Electric Boogaloo. But Poison is fucking god tier. He's a god tier player. He's incredibly confident, incredibly quick. When he was being hyped up back in the day, I was like, listen, let's not get carried away. A lot of these results are online, but nah, this guy is fucking great. And really is solid as well. I mean, what surprises me is it's not like he's a Woxic or a Henny where, old Woxic, not Woxic currently in this iteration of Mousesports, but when Woxic was playing in like Hellraisers, he'd have incredible series and then he'd shit the bed. And Henny was like,
super
he'd have these incredible series and then he'd shit the bed. Poison is unbelievably consistent. I can't remember a bad map even where he's like struggled. And you know, for me, probably the natural successor in how he plays the kind of like Guardian in that style. You know, Guardian used to be the guy who would like, you know, great movement, make aggressive peaks, take over a map just by being this oppressive force. You can't get through any choke point because he's there, and he's not just going to kill one of you, he will kill 2 or 3. I think Poison's an incredible talent, and you know, credit to the scouting of Complexity. Also, do remember, of course, Poison could have been in OG. That nearly happened. So, but yeah, listen. The one thing I did want to talk about in terms of roster, I don't know what you thought about this, because I know you're very critical of NA players, which is fair. A lot of them do have big egos and stuff. But I do remember saying that when Rush was brought into this team, I believe that Rush would get his mojo back and would make a stellar contribution to this team and be instrumental in their success. And I'm with you. Obviously, right now it's very much the honeymoon period, but I think Rush has been great. I think.
Oh yeah, he's definitely turned it around.
Yeah. And I think it's worth highlighting.
And actually, one of the things that's interesting is, like that was actually one of the things we got from the comms, is when we were listening to the comms of Complexity at Blast, Poison, even though he's the best player, is like one of the most silent players in the game. He's one of those people who just zones in the crosshair, kills people. So actually, Rush was doing a sticko. He was like comming for Poison. So not only is he doing the work in the server, where he actually looks like a much transformed player from his Cloud9 days, but more crucially, he's even added like value that you can't even know unless someone like me tells you the story, basically. So yeah, respect to him. He's basically playing the vet role.
But I heard a lot of players talk about that. Like Rush was like a guy who, when he died, which obviously when he was in a bad form, happened a lot. But he is the guy that like then, you know, is like, you know, making sure everyone gets the information, making sure that, you know, when he's alive, if there's a mid-round call that he needs to do. Like his comms are like, if you talk to a lot of NA players, people say it's one of his strongest points, that he's very like even-headed. Like apparently he used to be a bit of a hothead, and could get quite heated, but he ironed that out of his game, and now he's got like very clear, concise comms. That's what people always tell me. And that he, you know, he'll make mid-round calls. He's got very good reads. He doesn't do it in an oppressive way where he's stepping on the IGL's toes. So I think, you know, the fact that he's been able to get some form back has been really good for the team. I'm super happy for him. I always thought when he was in that Cloud9 team, he went from being, you know, kind of when he was back in sort of the Optic days, he was like one of the best all-rounders in NA. And then, like, he did fall off a massive cliff. I've never seen anything like it, really. But so for him to get back in this team, and he's one of the older members, I think he might actually be the oldest guy on the roster.
And by the way, just because I know people don't keep track of things, because you all think you remember, and you can all have got great, you don't remember shit. Remember everyone on Reddit laughing at Alex for suggesting that Complexity wouldn't be able to keep up that ridiculous level of form, and that, you know, they probably some of it was like hitting shots and pogging, and that they'd fall off, and everyone just laughed as salty idiot, He was only completely right, of course. The same team didn't even win a DreamHack Open.
Exactly.
It's almost like he knows a thing or two about the fucking game, isn't it?
Do you want to talk a little bit about Furia, or are you not so interested in that?
I don't mind that. Here's the thing. I have to say, after they got past the first lineup where they just did the beating Astralis last year and all that bullshit, when they got this newer lineup with Henny, I actually like this team. I like to watch them play. I do think they've got a lot of flaws. Like I think tactically they're shit and they don't know what they're doing in some of the games, but the players are fucking good. Like I think this lineup is way better than MIBR's.
Yeah.
They've got some good firepower for sure.
Yeah, no, listen, I think the thing I want to talk about is, obviously they made it to the final here. Henny didn't have a great final, but he was good in the tournament overall. Yuri and Quesarato continued to show that as a pairing. I mean, especially Yuri in the series against Complexity. I think he dropped 70 frags against Complexity. I mean, just insane stuff. I just don't know where they're at overall. It's like they always seem to have these like little anomaly performances where you go, oh, maybe they could get back. Remember when Furia were top 5 in the world? Remember when Furia beat Astralis not once but twice? Do you remember that Furia? Like, I don't think we ever see that Furia again. But I do, I keep wondering what if. I just keep wondering what if. That if instead of KNG and Mayern, you had Quesarato and Yuri in that MIBR team. I still think Furia is almost like a placeholder. I don't think they're comprehensively better than MIBR. I think they're wildly inconsistent. But it's not like Brazil doesn't have talent. Every time you look at this Furia team, you look at that roster on paper, you go, yeah, this is actually a team that can do damage. It's just that they waited until fucking Anaheim until they did it. And then honestly, were very, very timid in the final. It's like, sure, they had to play the final straight after the Complexity series, if I remember rightly. I think it was the same day. But
usually is, I think, in DreamHack.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. So it wasn't like they got a break after a very grueling, draining series, which is always an issue. But I just don't know. I just don't know with this team. They seem to do well one event and then terribly the next. It's
Well, the problem is
they're not going to change anything. Are they?
They're not even a dark horse, because dark horse, at least in theory, should have legit consistent chances to do it. They're just one of those teams where it's like they're way better than whatever their rank is, and it's more like they just fuck someone else's tournament up. Like they can play awesome in one game or a couple of games in a row, but as you say, it's not like they even win the DreamHack Opens. There's other DreamHacks they've been in that they haven't won. So that is a concern. That you've got to have the consistency that basically this is the mistake people always make in the world, is your peak is not who you are. That's just the best case scenario. Who you are is whatever your average is. And unfortunately for them, their peak's really high. Their average is way lower than it should be for a team that can do as well as they can.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's a shame. It's a shame. I keep saying it. I look at all the separate pieces of Brazil. I look at Phelps playing in that fucking Brazilian league.
It makes no sense, does it? They have so much talent for these teams this bad.
Right, but he's a team called Boom now, right? Go look at Phelps' stats in this fucking Brazilian
he's still
league.
tearing everyone up, mate. He's still tearing everyone.
It's unreal. He's hitting like two HLTV, 2.00 in an HLTV rating right now. Like he's too good to be playing there. What the fuck is going on? Like politics and personalities have absolutely and greed, from orgs have absolutely ravaged Brazilian Counter-Strike. Like it's insane what has happened to it. And it's like you say, you should be easily fielding two world-class teams.
Of course,
all the players that are out there in Brazil.
And think about how much experience these cores now have in these teams. So that's the other thing. Like you should be at the point now where it's just a case of who's in which team, and then let's go. Let's have two teams that are in the top 10.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I was happy to see Furia in a final, but obviously that means next time you see them out, they'll be utterly fucking terrible. The real talking point is this. Gen G won this tournament. Okay, well, we can timestamp that and pretend I didn't have a Biden moment. It's fine. I'm not losing my mind. Timestamp.
Corn Pop!
Yeah.
What about Corn Pop?
No, listen, I don't know if you know about it, Duncan, but you see, like, what would happen is when I used to sit out by the pool, my leg hair would turn blonde, and kids would come up and they would just stroke the curls out of my leg hair. And
the wildest thing about those stories is when he tells them. I mean, now obviously I've got the expectation he's going to say something stupid. When he first started telling those stories, I would almost catch myself like, is it me who's not following the story? Like, am I just not understand what he's talking about? Like, and then I'd have to realize, like, well, I mean, there's 50 cases of it. He's just lost his marbles. It's just gone.
Mate, I don't know if you saw it today.
I saw the one. The one today was amazing. Where he tells it's when he's not only arguing with that guy about the guns. It's when he just out of nowhere. No one else even caught this. It's when he just slips out and he just goes like, "We can go outside as well." Like, what the fuck? You're like an old ass man.
He said he would slap him in his face. I've got the clips. Like he said he was going to slap this guy in the face. He then said he was going to ban AR-14s. Go look up what an AR-14 is.
I'm sure it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, not an AR-15, an AR-14. Which, if you know about guns, you'll understand why that's hilarious. He's lost his mind, mate. It's so abundantly clear. And the aides that are sort of shuffling Biden from public appearance to public appearance in the background are like just going like, yep, oh, this is great. This is great. He's really enjoyed talking to you. And Biden's going, oh, I can do more push-ups than you. It's like dragging him away, mate. Fucking.
The only thing is though,
sort this the fuck out.
That exact example there, though, does also show how stupid the average populace is. Because people really believe, Richard, like, if I just confront a politician who's literally, by the way, only on the road trying to shake hands and fucking kiss babies and get, like, good PR, I can just confront him with a really big, serious issue that's involving his policy, right? There's zero chance you're ever going to actually get a proper, like, back and forth there. It's not even on the table. Best case scenario, you get that one where, like, Kamala Harris would just, like, fob people off, like, yeah, I'm going to do all shit for your cause as well. Like, get these people the fuck out of here. Like, that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you're just going to get something like this where someone's just hostile to you. You're never going to get, like, they're not just going to go, actually, you know what? You make a good point with all the fucking world's media cameras. Actually, my policy is fucked. I have to really sort my shit out.
No, but like it's one thing to sort of say, well, listen, I'm sorry you disagree, but I think if you look at the numbers and you have like a civil conversation with someone, because at the end of the day,
he's clapping back, mate. He's not just going to take that shit.
These are people he's trying to win over to go and vote for him. Like when you clap back at a cunt on Twitter, right? Like I don't need your vote, I don't need your money, I don't give a fuck, right? But like you want to win an election, and you're going from place to place, threatening to slap people and telling stories about when you were a pool attendant and fucking fighting fictitious villains called Corn Pop, and you fucking like, mate, like
the worst cartoon character of all time. He's all like, Corn
what
Pop.
do you want me to fucking say about this? Like, I can do more push-ups than you. Like, he's just like fucking Sleepy Joe's a mess. Like, it's got to stop. Like, but anyway, timestamp all of this. So as I was saying, we didn't really get a good measure of Gen G because they had to use a stand-in before for Bentet. And now they came to this tournament definitely without a stand-in. And Som had the best performance he's ever had at LAN, and it took over the whole fucking tournament. It was incredible to see. Makes you excited about this Gen G team. But let's talk a little bit about Som. I mean, Som's a player that for a long time people have been like, hey, I watch his stream, I see his highlights. Obviously, idiots don't realize that when you're just playing pickup games and running around shooting heads, anybody can look good. If you've got a sort of above average.
All right, I just said Bugs Bunny's catchphrase for no reason there,
But very good. I actually like that. I got it. But the reality is, a lot of people have said that Som definitely was good enough to be like on pro teams. People had intimated there was some personality.
There's some hype around him.
He's just a kid. I mean, people don't seem to realize that he was being talked about, when he was 14, 15. Like, he's 17, guys. Like, you got to give these kids time to develop not just their skills, but also the necessary intrapersonal skills so you can be on a team. But this was just insane performance by him. Again, this was the unexpected component of Gen G. What would happen if somebody like Som did pop off? And pop off he did. So I want to start just by talking a little bit about him. I mean, actually, if you go look at the Gen G roster, because they've got DAPS, I think actually low key, like I don't know if I'm just getting carried away because they've won like one very mediocre tournament, but when you look at this roster suddenly and you start contextualizing Som, and we're going to talk about KOOSTA in a bit as well, the fact they picked up Bentet, I always said if Bentet went to a foreign
this
team,
is an undervalued roster. It's actually it's actually better than you think, especially now that you've seen these results. It's way better.
Mm.
Like they had a couple of
just some
before.
thoughts about Som's performance at least.
Oh, like here's the thing: when he was in the Envy team, this is the problem. Like because he got that hype coming up, where as you said, it was from playing like ESEA type pugs or whatever, or shit he did on stream, and people linked like a crazy clip. As usual, they jumped the gun way too early, and they try to call it like he's like basically. I almost feel like in the same ways, like all NFL discussion has been ruined by the Patriots winning all those Super Bowls. So now idiot fans think that like quarterbacks that won one Super Bowl, like. Could he really even have been that good? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's like your normal expectation for your entire career is to win one. Like, you just don't win. So in the same sense,
I feel like Brady and Belichick together is just an insane fucking combo. Yeah.
So I feel like Simple and Ziwu have just broken stupid fans to think that like you should just literally be the best from day one. And if you're not, then you obviously just shit and it's all fake. Because I agree, when he was in the Envy team, because people kept hyping him, I checked in a couple of times. And it wasn't anything to see, put out. It was just all right. Like, every now and then he'd have a good map that would look good. But the team wasn't good. He wasn't that great. You wouldn't have picked him to be a stud like this. But as you say, look how young he was. Look how inexperienced he is. Plus, who the fuck's he working with in Envy? Who's his IGL in Envy? Nifty. Who's he working with else in that team? Fugly. Like, these aren't the players that you want to bring up a young guy. Whereas you look at the players here, Bentet and Automatic are fucking proven mustard. DAPS is way better than the level of the team he's in right now. Like, he's actually walked into a dream scenario for a young guy who's inexperienced. He's even, by the way, got KOOSTA, who is who he was 4 years ago. That probably even helps. I'm sure that even helps us on like an emotional level.
No, but this is what I was going to say, right? Like, this is where you're going to find that something out about DAPS, and that if you didn't already know it.
DAPS is the truth in case people don't know, by the way. I've told people this for so long. I don't get why they
we made jokes on the show about him being a cuckold.
He is. He's a mad beater.
Which he is.
He was a simp before simps were even around.
I mean, because he took what happened to him in NRG so fucking well, and Tarek always seems to be.
Mate, he reminds me of that joke. You'll appreciate this because it's from the Northeast, right? The way that he acts towards the people who come in and replace him in his teams reminds me of this joke, right? Where when Alan Shearer played for Newcastle, people used to say, if I came home and found Alan Shearer in my bed with my wife, I'd say, "Would you like another blanket, Alan?" That's what fucking DAPS is like. He's like, oh, by the way, the lube's in the bottom drawer, by the way. She'd like to up the arse as well. Like,
just take your time out. I'll put tea on. Yeah, exactly right. But listen, this is where you're going to find out something about DAPS, like, because I think low key this could be another NRG story in the sense that obviously you've got DAPS, he's the hangover there, the continuation. But this pickup of Bentet, very reminiscent in kind of a way the pickup of Cirque. You've brought somebody in who's been like a talent in their region, somebody who we know can kind of hang, but what happens if they move? Can they adapt? Can they change? Well, so far Bentet's been playing pretty well. He's been very welcome that they finally got him over the hump, visa wise and everything else, and fitness wise. Automatic, as you said, already proven and has been miserable, I think, in Cloud9 for a long time, in a shadow of himself because of that. Because how do you play in a roster with a revolving door? I've said this many times. But the real fucking measure of what DAPS will bring is, first of all, he's got Som in a place where he looks to be a really good functional teammate, and all those rumors and intimations now seem silly. They just seem like the rumors and intimations that they, either were or maybe weren't. KOOSTA is the real fucking story here, because listen, me and Moses were all in on the fucking KOOSTA train when he got his team Liquid move, and perhaps that was too much too soon for a young player that clearly wasn't ready to cope with the spotlight and wasn't ready to play as a star player. And it's been a long road back. Wait a
minute. When you say that he wasn't ready, like that was 4 years ago. How long does this cunt need? What's he? One of these people trying to fucking like? Is he in the bathroom with Coke Dick? Like, come on, what the fuck? I'm paying by the hour. Like, give me a break. 4 years. How long does he need?
No, listen. What I'm saying is though, like you could see how deeply affected he was in the post-Liquid era.
Yeah, he was wrecked.
Yeah. And he's had so many clips where poor time management, fucking up defuses, costing his team rounds and games and stuff. Like, he's been a basket case for a while. Like, yeah, and like, listen, it makes me think back to that moment on E-League now where he was taking his headset off and Mo was straight wrecking him. I don't know if that was like the genesis of him becoming like this, like, he's a guy who very much lives in his own head, it seems, and doesn't cope well with pressure. While DAPS is a guy that, proved to bring along young talent and help you get back to a good place. Now, there is no doubt, like, this is the part
DAPS comes in,
gonna like.
Been fucked for 4 years? Welcome to our life, kid. Like, come on, I'll take you under my wing.
Listen, it gets worse, But like, no, the reality is that KOOSTA, remember, he was an AWPer. He doesn't AWP in this team.
Right? He learned his lesson.
he's a rifler, and he's been a very good rifler. I mean, this is an insane turnaround since he's been in Gen G. You've got to acknowledge it, right? Right?
I mean, it's only in this one
Give
tournament.
KOOSTA some credit. Come on,
for this one tournament, I thought he played slightly above average. I'll give him a C+ and say, congratulations, KOOSTA, on finding a fucking knot, you blind squirrel guy. That's all I'll give you. No, he was better than I expected.
Me and Mo, look, the way I think about it, Duncan, is that this proves conclusively 4 or 5 years down the road, me and Moses were right all along. That's how I think about it.
I'm just going to spin it into, this is how fucking good DAPS is. He takes KOOSTA and starts doing work with him.
Yeah, but that was my point as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and suddenly, again, ahead of Flashpoint, like I'm actually looking forward to seeing Gen G. This looked like a team that, you've just thrown some players together and hope for the best. But actually, when you have DAPS in that mix, there's never not going to be a system. There's never not going to be a chance that this team will be molded together into something. And if you just go look at the results, not just at Anaheim, but kind of outside of it, they've beaten a lot of fucking pretenders as well, and teams that the community have talked up as being, you know, these are going to be the next big thing. You know, like they've in 2020, you know, they've beaten like Furia in a best of 3. They beat Steel's Chaos in a best of 3, and then at this Anaheim tournament, they've beaten, you know, they beat obviously Furia in the final. They beat North. That fucked up my fantasy, you know, which is an MSL team. And it was a very close series, but that's the other thing that you got to admire about Gen G. It's not like it's just some NA pug style running around, we either blow you out or we lose badly, you know, like you would traditionally see. This is they're grinding out close series against proven international teams already, and the team only came into being in December 2019.
That's one thing, actually.
And played their first games without Bentet.
That's one thing I think does get lost on a lot of people. Is like, okay, so like when I've made that comment where when Astralis was on top, which to be fair wasn't that long ago, like obviously it was literally like a month ago or whatever, when they were the absolute best team in the world, when they play their style, I often think fans, like, even though it's obvious they're doing tactics, I don't think people understand that their style is the hardest to be the best with. Like that super tactical, drawn out style where everything's based on making the right decision constantly 5 times in a round, instead of just like the FaZe clans at their best would just, you pick a great aim duel, you win the aim duel, you move on to the site. It's like an FPL game. The key thing is, right, because Astralis is like the rare outlier, you see so many teams in the top 10 that are based around star power. It's like, right, we've got this player or these 2 players and we let them do what they want and then we play around them. And it's like a hybrid of like, it's mainly fragging. They have to perform well. I'm thinking of like the last Larvae lineup before. Yeah. Then you have players where you just hope they do their job. What people lose as a result is they think because those teams don't go super tactical, that like being super tactical is only for the Astralises of the world. The places where tactics are the most effective is this level. Once you're outside of the top 10 and you're going 10 to 30, you will win fucking tons of games if you have a good IGL who runs a decent tactical system and knows where to put his players. That's why the MSLs and the DAPS of the world never go away. Even if they get fired and they go down, whatever pieces they have, they're always making them inexplicably better. Because like this is where people really underestimate it. Counter-Strike isn't just about shooting people, not even at that level. Because when everyone else is just trying to be POG stars and they're just trying to put all the most skilled players that they can find in NA together, you'll beat them if you have a real team. And that's one of the things I respect about DAPS. He always sets his teams up properly. He always finds the right role for someone. Doesn't mean they're an amazing player, but it's rare that someone's better without DAPS than they were with him, put it that way.
Yeah. So that wraps up the Anaheim talk. Did you watch any of the minor qualifiers?
No, I haven't seen any of that.
I stayed up and watched.
So there's a lot of shocks already.
Yeah, I mean, but this is like the nature of the beast now. And what's interesting is the scene's got more kind of competitive overall. We've got that wider distribution of talent.
Online CS is a nightmare right now.
Yeah, and online it's online as well. You know that you're always going to get these shock results. I mean, I'm trying to think of the ones off the top of my head that really leapt out.
I mean, OG didn't make it.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, the OG losing to Heretics is a big talking point, right? So for those who don't know who Heretics are, you could be forgiven. They're a French team. And tell me if you remember some of these names. Do you remember Lucky? Remember him, guys? Remember Lucky? Remember Lucky? Remember XMS? Remember him? Remember XMS?
Envy?
Remember Kiyashima? I'm sure you've heard of Kiyashima. So Heretics
Possible cheater. That's all for the old school fans.
Remember those skins?
I said possible.
You even brought that up. Remember 2014? Remember transferring skins? Remember all the weird shit that used to go on back in the day that isn't even relevant now because it's a different world? Duncan remembers. Duncan fucking remembers. And we'll bring it up every episode of this podcast, as is his right as the recurring.
Where your skin's gone, though.
Yeah. Exactly. Where your skin's gone, though. So anyway, Heretics... beat OG, beat Heroic, and then what was the other fucking result? Did they even need another result after that? Did they not play again? I can't remember. But anyway, so they're in. They're fucking qualified. Like so.
Oh, big loss to Movistar Riders. There's one for you.
Yep.
Heroic then lost to Copenhagen Flames. There's some fucking huge ones.
Yeah. And first ever Spanish team actually to qualify for a minor.
Oh, fair enough.
So I mean, and crucially did it without Mixwell.
Forgot he was even alive still, mate. Fair enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, mate, sometimes so does he. you know, but if you remember Lowell, who used to play for Mouse Sports, he's on this roster, and Steele, the Brazilian Steele, has come in and took over as the IGL.
That's right. Yes, I remember that. No.
And guided them through to actually being the first ever fucking Spanish team. So I mean, that's a great storyline, actually. I think the thing that really upsets me about the current sort of Counter-Strike calendar is I think the minors should be way more kind of taken seriously, because this is the start of the story for the major, right? This is where it all starts. You'll probably see some of these teams, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, but you will see some of these teams at the major, you know, in earnest, not just a major qualifier. And it's like people aren't really paying attention to these like insane little stories that are happening. Like, first of all, how many people have been saying, oh, we want Kiyashima back on a top team? Well, he couldn't get back on a top team, so he's just took all of these fucking French journeymen and also rans. He's the only one with any star power in the team whatsoever. He's the only one with any international pedigree, and somehow they've just spanked teams that are being talked about as future top 10 teams in the world. That's a massive story.
Here's another one for you, mate.
Yeah.
Another team is obviously Godsent made it, right?
Yes.
Go look right now.
Did you see how they did it though, mate?
They are I saw that round. It was amazing.
No, it was insane. It was insane. And I saw Stickle
But the entire team are rejects. Mate, look at who Makalele is at a minor. Are people aware of this? He's back.
Yeah. No, that game where they beat OG is insane. Because the way that they clutch it is it's a one-on-one clutch by Krystal. And what Sticko said on Twitter, and again, we all know Sticko is the fucking thinking man's Counter-Strike player. He's a fucking genius up there. He said that Krystal he did that move where you drop down silently, and apparently he'd been practicing that over and over and over again just in case it ever came up. And it did come up, and it happened to be the 1v1 clutch that got them a minor spot. So an insane story there from Godsent. And listen, Krystal is one of the worst professional players. I mean, seriously, like an 8-map between him and Hunden would never end. It would last forever.
The people who even like him and were his teammates who fuck with him totally don't even understand that they're playing into the most ridiculous meme when they actually do say, but he's a really nice guy. It's yeah, of course.
No, but he is. He's one of the nicest guys ever.
Of course.
I remember last time I saw him at a tournament, because obviously I knew him from the Source days. He just came over with a cake that I tell a story all the time. His mother had just baked a cake, and he brought it. And he said, my mother baked a cake for you, Richard. How are you doing? I'm like, fucking hell.
I mean, I'm just going to say that explains a lot about his personality, doesn't it? He's not really cut out for the fucking big time, is he? His mama's boy over there.
Oh, can I lick the spoon, Mama? With being a nice, wholesome family guy. Not everyone has to be a dysfunctional fucking trainer like you and me.
And then, think about it. He's even giving him that cake. Go on, take this cake into those lads. That'll make them like you. See if you can get a few friends. Then he goes, go up to that Richard guy. He likes cakes. Then he go on, look, that one over there. And then he comes up. All right, lads, anyone wants these cakes? And I bet someone walked over, some fucking proper G. Just goes over and goes, all right, there you go. There's your fucking cake, you little rat. Get the fuck out of me.
Well, because it was that event where I got accused of bullying Babam, I'm sure everybody on Reddit said it was me, so why not, like, you know?
There we go.
But anyway, yeah, so, I mean, mad stories, Godsent getting through. Complexity got in because Mad Lions, I mean, we'll segue into talking about this, I guess. Mad Lions obviously had to drop out, right? Because of their definitely, totally pre-planned move. That was completely legit and definitely planned ahead of time to remove Hunden, so they couldn't field a roster for the minor qualifier, which they would have had a great chance of getting through. So it was all definitely planned, guys. Nothing to see here. And of course, this opened the door to Complexity. Complexity were abjectly miserable, thinking like, you know, are we even going to be at a major? Well, Complexity fucking made it, no doubt there. I bet they were landed. Like, this was like literally, you know, not even just Last Chance Saloon. Like, Last Chance Saloon had already been and gone, and they were able to, I mean, well, they were given a gift because they got to play Sprout, but they did beat the Godsent team that also got through as well. So they were through into much like Heretics. So that, I mean, you know, Complexity now have a real chance of going on to make the major, because I think they're one of the best teams to come through. Sure. NIP are through. Obviously, Fnatic, people probably forget this. The drop-off for Fnatic was so profound and so pronounced back in the day, in the post-Golden Era wasteland, that Fnatic had to play in this. Fnatic had to play in the minor qualifiers, and obviously they got through because they're one of the best teams in World Counter-Strike right now. And Dignitas also through as well. So just to give everybody the complete list, Fnatic, NIP, Dignitas, Movistar Riders, Heretics, Complexity, Godsent, and Copenhagen Flames, with OG not making it through, who I'm sure a lot of bettors out there would have been like, you know, they're one of the favorites. I think Big as well didn't make it.
Yep.
They lost to Movistar Riders. I think people might have banked on Big. Heroic didn't make it. So obviously they lost to Copenhagen Flames. And again, if you look at the teams, right, and you just go on star power alone, I'll just read you the roster for Heroic, right? Ezatag, remember him? You know him? Snappy, remember him? We know him. Cadian, remember him? We know him. Borup, remember him? We know him. Staun, as I'm told it's pronounced, not starving, like we've been calling starving Marvin for fucking 2 years. Staun. Okay, now we go over to the Copenhagen Flames roster. Hooksy, Farlig, Nodios.
These sound like fucking like acronyms or something, don't they? Like what the fuck are you talking about? Like?
Yeah, mate, it's like listening to a Joe Biden speech.
Mate, I remember playing against one of these in Faceit. So for reference, I think I played against that Nodios guy. I remember checking. He was like, "Who the fuck's Copenhagen Flames?" Because he banged me out. Obviously, he was pretty good. Like I'll give him that. But he was near like my Faceit level. So if I'm playing with him, what the fuck's going on?
It's the way he goes.
Let's get a Welsh team together for the fucking next one.
It's the way he goes. He banged me out, so I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Oh well,
mate,
fair enough.
You've obviously never seen Sam play Counter-Strike,
exactly,
mate. He's low key. He's low key a big thing, though. But anyway, so Nodios, and then you've heard of Tezes, and obviously this is where Refresh ended up after, you know, his kind of career looked like it was going to take off, and then didn't kind of work out for him. But so yeah, a lot of upsets here, and you can put it down to online Counter-Strike. The one thing I'll say here, most of these teams were of a caliber where you're not going to, you wouldn't even think of them getting into anything dubious. And then over in NA, I don't think they've been I don't think the NA qualifier is finished yet. I don't think they have a complete list. But we do have a rough idea. There's like, I think 4 teams have been officially qualified now. Correct again, the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. And this is what the Americas mine is going to look like. Is it finished? It is done. So who are the extra teams? Or is it just 4 teams?
No, the miners there now. It looks like it was.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, it is. It is. We've got 6 teams confirmed. So it just wasn't there, I think, when I was putting the show flow together. But yeah, so Boom are through, Furia are through. We already talked about those guys earlier in the show. Cloud9, okay. Gen G, Bad News Bears, which is PTR's team.
He's never going to stop playing.
No, and long may stoned Peter Gurney play forever till the end of time. Like, do you remember PTR? Oh yeah, of course I remember him. He's still playing in some team you've never heard of, wrecking everybody on Faceit or whatever he plays now, or Lanxess. That's just PTR, right? May last forever. Red Canids, which is FNX's team. Yes. FNX is back, baby, and going to so. And then I'm not too sure what the other ones are, because I was looking at some of the results when I was prepping the show. I guess the big
Furia and Gen G.
No, I already said them. I think. Is it only 6? Oh, is it only 6 slots?
No, there's 8. There's 2 South American ones and 6 from North America.
Right. So so anyway, you some of the results that kind of went a bit strange. It's Triumph and Envy. So Envy are through. Yes, I mean, that makes sense. Envy have been looking really good, actually, since they, threw this new team together. It's interesting that everyone was talking about kind of Nifty being a snake, and since Calyx has been fragging out of his mind in this team, and I've always said, and I will always maintain, Moose, low-key, is a player that's been languishing well below his level, and obviously Moose jumped across from United, I think it was, if I remember rightly. It is hard to keep up with all these shit ever-shuffling, tier 2, tier 3 NA teams, but he's fitted right into this team and has definitely given them an extra dimension. And Envy, low-key, especially ahead of Flashpoint, because they're in it. And Michu is there now as well, the Polish dude. So Envy, low-key, could be a surprise here. The series that I watched from the NA games was obviously the Chaos one. That was like a couple of days ago. It's actually a really good series. It's got 2 overtimes and then a map on overpass. But yeah, Chaos didn't make it, and I think a lot of people kind of had hopes for this. But obviously, the reality is the Chaos team, when you're doing minor qualifiers, they can't use steel, so it's not even a true representation of the team, which shows how absurd that situation is. That they, that
still funny that Smoothie didn't make it though.
I mean, listen, it was no fault of Smoothie's that this team.
Yeah, of course not.
He is the best player on motherfuckers in this team. Like seriously, like Smoothie is easily like too good for this level of Counter-Strike.
Of course, he's already at that level because he fucked up his reputation. That goes without saying.
Well, listen, I keep hoping he's going to put it back together, and he's going to bounce back like Alan Partridge or something. But yeah, they didn't make it. And then I'm trying to think actually if there was anyone else. I mean, I suppose this Augless team, people have been talking them up a little bit because it's got Wardell, FNS, Sabrosa, who used to play in Complexity, Infinite. It's a decent lineup. And they qualify for Flashpoint as well?
They're in Flashpoint
recently. And I remember the interview with FNS. So the North American qualifier, obviously, I'd say the caliber is certainly a lot less. A lot less in terms.
You notice as well, by the way, this totally plays into that video you made. I can't remember if it was a year ago or a year and a half ago. Now,
what about IGLs? Game leaders?
Yeah,
and
mate,
star
here's
players.
another one. So there's FNS, another player throwing the scrap people. You can give these players almost anyone and they make them better because that's what a real leader does in Counter-Strike. Whereas if you see the teams that are just 5 POG stars, they don't do shit. They never do shit.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Look, that video is evergreen, it seems. I see it all of the time. Star players getting their way in a team, really good proven IGLs, getting kicked out, put in a free agency, having to scrap and battle back together to put together 4 other players who were also on the scrap heap with them, make a functional team. And the only people whose stock seems to rise off the back of that are the fucking players, not the IGL. Yeah, and they get picked up, and then the IGL's like, well, fucking hell, got to start over again. How many times can proven IGLs like FNS? I mean, again, it still remains one of the most fucking insane things to me that FNS was given 6 weeks at Cloud9.
It was a very short amount. I think it was two lands or something crazy.
Yeah, it's just listen, FNS, you're gonna build a system. And it's going to be great. 6 weeks later, don't really like where you're going with this. How the fuck do you even know? So yeah, FNS was absolutely fucking wrecked in his time in Cloud9 and has put together a team. I mean, him and Wardell getting together, it's good that Wardell's kind of existing in the post-Ghost era still. I think Wardell's one of those talents, again, that's kind of flown under, like Som. It's like somebody like that has flown under the radar for a long time. Everybody knows he's good, but the stars haven't aligned yet for him to get his opportunity. But I think that Augless team will definitely shock a few people at Flashpoint, and I think Wardell in particular will.
By the way, there's the other thing that needs to be said and reiterated again. So people obviously know when Team Liquid and EG were some of the best teams in the world, NA has good players. That belies the fact that NA has a massive amount of talent. A massive amount, especially because unlike regions like CIS region, where those players can only go to play at teams in their region, the sheer amount of opportunity for the talent in NA is incredible. So as a result, the amount of actual talent, top players who could be in a top 10 team from NA is probably more than any other country in the world.
So I also just want to bring up because I promised I would highlight this for some people I know in the scene. And I'll give you the news story. It is on HLTV. I think people expected that maybe it wouldn't make HLTV news. But there's been this thing throughout the ESL qualifiers, and it has particularly ravaged the Asia minor because the Asia minor covers such an incredibly geographically diverse space. It's not I mean, first of all, it does anyway, Asia as you think about it. But there's some regions that end up in Asia that maybe shouldn't even be in Asia. For Israel, for example. I've never understood why Israel isn't in
I'm
Europe.
just looking at the information in this already, right? Obviously, I've immediately seen the name Camel Riders, and then I look on the names. Well, maybe just a fun name. Player called Pokemon, of course.
Yes,
with the N capitalized Guardian star. Get me out! Just get me out now.
when it comes to cool nicknames, that region is a little bit behind the rest of the world. I will say that. But no, I want to talk about. I want to talk about this. You know, it is a crazy situation where the rules in ESL's policy, and remember these are for qualifiers for the biggest tournaments that we have. Is that players are being made to play on servers that are supposedly at the halfway point, right? That's the rule.
Makes sense.
That
That's the
ESL
usual way
have.
you do it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but what happens is, you see, they're not doing it from a ping perspective. They do it from sort of a geographical perspective.
Fucking hell.
Right. So what has ended up happening in these qualifiers, and it might even happen to some of the NA players as well, is that people are playing on, like in this instance here, 195 ping difference. People are being told to play out with 200 ping, and they're appealing to admins. And then one team is saying, "But look in the rules, this server is the halfway
As in the
point."
other team has like 10 ping and they have a 2.
As in one team has 10. Right. So as in one team has 10 ping, and the other player has like 200 or
Well, fair play to ESL. Like, in line with what Carmack and, Ralph Reichert have said about ESL's plans, they are developing other regions, because that's sort of like being put in that Bane pit. If you can actually make it out with like 200 ping versus 10 ping, you're probably one of the best teams in the world. So they are developing those regions out there,
And obviously, listen, I know a lot of people. We all remember Israel from back in the day, and I remember,
Yes.
I used to talk to a lot of.
He literally means the word Israel, but with an E instead of an R. It's not just saying in a weird accent. Like
they were a
Israel.
1.6 org. They also had a CSS team for a time towards the end of CSS, and I knew those guys because one of the cool things about Counter-Strike when it became truly international for the first time was you actually got to meet all these players you'd heard about online, and were like, well, what would they do at a LAN? Like they're dominating their region, but they couldn't get to a LAN. And then when it became more viable, you got to meet all these people. So I've always had friends in like Dubai that used to play, for Dubai Mirage. And so I promised friends I had obviously in the Israeli scene that I would bring this up, and I think it's worth highlighting that obviously what you have to do is there has to be a point where common sense overrules the rule. It's like, again, the spirit of the rule has to be what you implement, not the letter.
Here's the sad thing though, Richard, is without drawing ridiculous stereotypes, let's just be real, they exist. If I had to pick one European country, Richard, who does the opposite of that and is all about being a stickler to the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit of the law, it's fucking Germans in Counter-Strike history. Like, if people don't know this, go ask Lurpus.
No demo, forfeit.
Exactly.
Yeah, immediately, dude.
What they would do famously
nightmare.
is they would read the rule book to the minutia, and all they would do is at what Americans call angle shoot. So they wouldn't say, well, is everyone recording demos, or is this the right server? What they would do is they'd play the game, and if they lost, they'd go, right, well, that doesn't count because it's forfeited because of this. And they'd have, by the way, the rules to the letter of the laws. Like I said, they'd know they were fucking rules lawyers. But the sad thing is,
Sorry, go on.
Basically, that's the problem, though, is exactly as you said. Bearing in mind, we're not talking about like life or death rules that should be like, to the absolute. It's supposed to be about what the spirit of it was. The spirit was to make the game as fair as possible. So if instead you're just going by the letter and you're making a match where someone has 200 ping and 10, I don't think we even need to debate this one. It's pretty obviously not the right scenario, is it? It's fucked.
No. And I feel deeply sorry because I don't believe any team should ever have to forfeit. In 2020, sorry, I know I'm doing that thing late night talk show host do, current year, blah, blah. I don't think any team should have to forfeit a map for what is the biggest tournament of their lives based on ping. What the fuck are we doing? Why isn't an ESL admin come in on this and said, listen, guys, we're going to find a neutral server. You might have to both play on like 60 ping or between 60 and 80 ping. Maybe we can't geographically find a server that gets it, but fucking 10 ping to 200 ping is ridiculous. That anybody should ever be put in that situation, and that an admin's just gonna lazily like fucking tapping at the sign, like it's not good enough. And I feel deeply sorry because this, for these players, because it was the series of their lives, and And it's been taken away based on a technicality. Now, I was going to say there as well, while you were talking about Germans, mate, I covered about like 10 seasons of German EPS, and you would just watch a game, and then you would write up the results, and then you would just get told by a German player you had on Steam, oh yeah, they're forfeiting that one. Well, I've just wasted 2 hours of my fucking life. Brilliant, thanks guys. You know, why play the game? Bring it up before
they
the
were
game.
notorious.
Never would do it, mate.
They
Never
were
would do
they
it.
were like people. That's why
Fucking
I said
forfeit fest.
That's why I gave that disclaimer, because people who don't know Richard are going to think you're just unfairly narrowing them down. No, like the contrasting stories between Germans and all the other countries is ridiculous. Like it's like they have 98% of the cases and everyone else. Is
there was only one team I ever came across that was worse than the average German team when it came to forfeits, and they were the stuff of legend in Counter-Strike source, and they were a Romanian team called Myrmidoni. Obviously from the Greek Myrmidon, I think, which is like it means
soldiers
like
of like some
exactly. So Myrmidoni they were called. They were unreal. They were unreal. I seriously, like it was like Better Call Saul levels of fucking rules lawyering. You've never seen anything like it. They pretty every tournament they were guaranteed to forfeit at least one team, like without fail. Never seen anything like it. But yeah, this is just sad. And I think as well, like, I understand there's like a lot on the line. Like, I totally get it. Everybody wants to win, but you also have to say to yourself, like, how bad do you want to win? Because, you know, let's say Camel Riders, and I can't believe I'm saying that as a fucking team name. But
they picked the name.
Yeah, exactly. So it's okay for me. All
apparently, yeah, I know.
You know, maybe think about those names before you go to a geographically diverse tournament. But okay. The reality is, like, you are now going to be known as that team, and especially when you consider the geography of it, you are going to be considered that team that, you know, forfeited, wouldn't play fair, forfeited someone out of it. So even if you do go all the way, even if you do get a shock result at the Asian qualifier and you beat a bigger and better team, you're not going to have a lot of love from the community about the nature you got there. You know, you have to have a bit of pride in yourself and a bit of confidence in yourself, and not just make a team fucking forfeit because the game is essentially unplayable. And I do feel bad for players because you've always got to act in your interests. I don't think you should ever put it in the hands of the players. I've said this many times. Like,
yes.
ESL should have just come in here and gone, right, listen, for the last map, we're going to make it sensible. You know, let's replay that last map between you two teams. Winner takes it all on a neutral server where you're within 20 ping distance of each other, so no one has like a massive advantage, and may the best team win. And I think that would be a wholesome solution to this. It's going to generate a lot of ill feeling, and rightly so. And I think it's sad. I think it's sad for my homies and you know, playing in Israel that their team that really had a chance of maybe representing them had it took away based on tech bullshit, you know. So I said I'd bring it up for them because, you know, I'm a nice guy like that. Right, let's get into viewer questions. As always, in case you don't know, we do have patrons for this show. What they do is they throw us money. If you throw us so much money that we like you, especially, we let you ask a question. It dictates the show. Generally, as well, the show was already getting bloated at 2 hours. Right, when we started the show, the remit, back when it was Alpha Draft, was it's a 1 hour show. And then I said, 1 hour's not really enough. Me and Duncan can talk. Fucking legs off a hind donkey. Let's do 90. And then it just naturally over time became 2 hours. Now our show's just regularly running 3 hours with the viewer questions. Like, so I got to get my shit together. We got to cut it down. We're giving you too much content. You know, like the people are going, oh yeah, don't make sure you stick to your 4 episodes a month. Yeah, these episodes are like Lord of the Rings now. Like, it's fucking insane. But anyway, J-Dubs. XTQs, that's the coach from Vitality, said in an HLTV interview after kicking MBK that 1, it was him making roster decisions, not the players. 2, the Shox roster would be Vitality's last French-speaking team. And 3, Shox will never be the captain. How much longer until the coach's public cooking is completed? Well, okay, so the reality is that, I mean, Shox isn't. They made Apex the captain.
Yes, Apex is the
caller
captain
now, which we haven't even talked about that, by the way, Duncan. I mean, when a star player's gonna learn. I don't know about you. I love having my entry fragger fucking distracted. I love having a legendary entry fragger distracted by having to watch all the pieces and make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing at the start of a round. What could possibly go wrong there? But I mean, listen, I like the coach. I think he's a big part of their success over there, and he probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. He seems like to be a guy that's.
I've heard some good things about him.
Yeah, and he's always been well liked in the French scene. He was just one of those players in particular that sort of he never was quite sort of good enough to really get to the why like no, but you're doing what I did. You're doing what I did.
It's not reasonable, like
I know.
It's not like he's not just bald for fun like me. Like
I know that in some ways that is wrong, but still funny.
Do you know what I mean?
He's not wrong.
Don't you fucking start by the ableists. Like he's got a condition.
All right,
you know what I mean? What next?
Mate. We've all got
for 10 minutes, Duncan riffs on how funny diabetes is. Well, he's lost his foot.
Tell you what, get me a fucking ribbon, and I'll fight for the cure as well.
I don't know, maybe it's just bald solidarity. Maybe I'm feeling bad about it. But, you know, I could get some stem cells banged into me and get a hair transplant. I don't even think when you have alopecia, you have that luxury.
Oh, stem cells fix everything, man. I'm sure that'll work.
You and your fucking stem cells. Oh, by the way, there was a news story the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
Had stem cells injected into her eyes to cure a disease
mental.
and just straight blinded her. Like,
well, to be fair, if you were having to have stem cells put in there, she must have been pretty close to blind already. Like,
yeah, but put it this way: the difference between close to blind and blind, you know, no one wants to close that gap by even a fucking millimeter, do you? But anyway, we'll save that for the podcast, right? Anyway, so when will his cooking be complete? They could never make Shocks in game leader of this team. Surely, Duncan, it can't happen again.
It's the end of the team if they do. Come on,
yeah,
like it's just the same thing. This is one of the things that is so bizarre about the French scene, is I understand, like, basically, for people who don't know the history of CSGO, the worst thing, and people are going to think I'm saying this as a fanboy, I mean it as a genuine statement on the scene. The worst thing that ever happened in that scene was all those players losing faith in existence as an in-game leader, because what they did instead was, as opposed to go, right, I don't agree with him as an IGL, so I better get a different IGL. No, they all sat around and just went, I think I'll just keep trying to be an IGL over and over again. Because Shocks and NBK have now both done this something like 3 times. And it doesn't matter how many times it fails. They always think the next time is the time where suddenly it's going to kick in again. They're going to be awesome IGLs. Even though these are also 2 people who in their specific roles have been some of the most decorated players ever. It's like, stick to what you're good at. It doesn't even make sense to give it up and become an IGL. Because I agree, if you look at the team they have right now, it's all well and good that coach saying that Shocks won't be the captain. But look who's left when Alex leaves. Zebu can't be the captain. That goes without saying. Just if you know anything about him, if you just look how young he is for a start off, and he's the star player. Apex, it also makes no sense. He doesn't have the right sort of mentality for it. I will say he claims he did call sometimes in Titan when they used to be up Kenya. So maybe he has a little bit of nous for it. And I know in the past he called on like Mirage in the G2 lineup or something. Then you look at RPK, the guy barely speaks. That's not an exaggeration. Like there's even people who are French.
Oh, he's a quiet motherfucker.
Exactly. So he's not the sort of person who's going to do that anyway. Then that's it. There's no players left. You've just recruited a brand new player who's not even been at the top level before. The problem with this is it's just inevitably going to become Shocks eventually, isn't it? If not now, in 2 months, in a month from now, because what's going to happen is they're going to be in a scenario where nobody else can call, and he's going to go, "What if I could get it to go?" Because that's what he does. He just goes up and then you get, you know, and once he hits the right frequency, your brain just goes, "Yeah, we should recruit Smiths to the team," you know, some shit like that. So I think the thing that got me excited though was the line in the middle where he said that if this doesn't work, this will be the last French-speaking lineup. Thank God. Because at this point in time, I'm bored with waiting for the French scene to figure itself out. First of all, G2 has already shown them they don't have to stay French. And secondly, I don't want to waste away for a year with Zewu in some Nightwear Nico sports scenario where he's sick and then they're just fucking can't even be top 10. That would be the worst thing of all to watch after such a straight fire first year.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I'm hoping they get this shit together, but I'm not convinced by Apex's captain and this new unproven guy coming in. If this new unproven guy, by the way, turns out to be another Zewu, and you know, we'll all look like idiots. You know, the chances of that are obviously slim. Common
No
sense
way.
tells you that. No way.
way.
Yeah. Well, now that we've said it, absolute way. Go. Remember how I said, oh, when they picked up Issa in Hellraiser, I'm like, Issa's not going to do anything. Players from that region, there just isn't the talent there. Comes out, he's straight fire. I come out, I eat humble pie. I go, I'm sorry about that, Issa. Massive decline. And then I'm like, fucking hell, Issa's fell off, hasn't he? Goes to OG and plays well. Like, listen, this show is a fucking, sometimes the opposite just becomes true. Like, so anyway, which is why Joe Biden's going to win the election. Right.
That'd be the greatest president America's ever seen.
Yes, definitely. Reykjavik on Steam. Will ESL keep the major with an audience even with the coronavirus scare as a way to finally... I'm not reading that. Or will the fact that a major final takes place on the 23rd plus 1 of May... Is it really on the 24th? That's hilarious. Maybe more likely to induce rage among Brazil fans and prevent there being an audience.
I've just seen what you wouldn't read out. That's actually funny.
Yeah. No, but never reading that.
Of course, yeah, it goes
why?
without
Like,
saying.
I try not to submit questions that I might just have a Ron Burgundy moment for.
Here's the
My
thing,
Twitch
though.
channel ban, like
You know
regulars,
what?
like, is
You
that
know
all
one
right,
thing
guys?
that is mental though is like if you hadn't have actually, if you just got told in a random passing conversation, right, that thing about the 23 plus 1 where they won't say number 24, you would even I, someone who's been known to criticize Brazil, would be like, you're making that up. That's an urban rumor, you know. There's no way to it. The fact that that's real is more bizarre than anything I've heard in a long, long time. Like,
oh no,
the entire country's like, we will just
like,
not be using one number.
Football players being given the number 24 in a squad as punishment and stuff, like mental. Like, he's absolutely mental. But yeah, if it's true that it's on the 24th of May, that is
pure banter, especially if it's unintentional.
The reality is, as I said when we were talking about coronavirus earlier, and I think we talked about this on last week's episode. Oh, well, the episode prior, a few days ago. The reality is, I don't think we know much about coronavirus in Brazil yet. In fact, like, I'll just do a quick fucking Google update on.
I can't imagine it's a place that they're heavily testing.
No, but equally as well, I'm pretty sure we would know about it by now. So here you go. So as of a day ago, the Ministry of Health from Brazil, this is reported in the Rio Times, has confirmed that there have been 25 confirmed cases in Brazil, most of them localized to Sao Paulo.
Luckily, this is in Rio, so.
Yeah, only 3 in Rio so far. And they believe that of the 25 cases, only 4 have occurred through local transmission. So it hasn't gone. We don't know yet. The problem you got with coronavirus is it does have a long incubation period, a sort of abnormally long incubation period. Like with seasonal flu, you'll show the symptoms, relatively quickly, you'll know. But this can have up to a 2-week incubation period. So this is one of the problems what we've had with tracking the spread, tracking the numbers. So we'll have to wait and see. But the reality is, even if there was to be an outbreak now, based on what we've seen in China, it'll probably be resolved by May. Would be my gut feeling. If you think about when coronavirus broke out, to the fact that China now has diminishing infection rates, and that life is sort of going back to normal as it ever gets in China. Anyway,
started the LPL up again and all that shit. So yeah, it seems like they are getting things back on track.
So they're getting their shit together. So I think, worst case scenario, this month's fucked, April's fucked, but by May rolls around, I think we should be good. Unless Brazil has like an absolute nightmare handling it. And that's even if it gets to that stage. They might already have provisions in place. The rest of the world, obviously you've seen what's happened in the Asian regions and is, with the exception of Italy, more prepared for an outbreak. So, Jace, seeing that players are now in the trend of releasing autobiographies, it's no time until one of them takes some other media too. Who do you think will be the first recording artist, the first actor, and finally the first to hit rehab or make a sex tape?
I can already tell you. You guys don't know this, but I'm going to give you all a little gift. Go on Instagram right now and look up DDK's Instagram and look for a video. It's him rapping, and he's doing it entirely earnestly, and he thinks he's good. All I'm going to say is Go listen.
When Duncan, I've got to ask, when did this show become Lashing Out at Friends, a series with Richard Lewis?
He is
Obviously, I
rapping
get
on the
accused of that
internet,
all the
What's he
time.
doing? Like,
No, but this is tough love. Dan
Well,
needs to
you
know
can-
that this
we
isn't
can
acceptable.
play it if you want.
Play a bit.
if
It's
you
only,
really
it's
want
only a
Trying to
short clip.
find
Play a
it,
little
trying
bit.
Yeah, it's just short. Go on.
I'm looking
Have
for
you
the
got it?
Instagram.
Sorry.
Like, I can't find it. I'm looking.
I'll find it. Wait there a second. I'll find this bloody shit. It's even better, by the way, guys. Let me prepare you because I've actually undersold it. It's not just him rapping. He's rapping about Quake.
Yeah,
For real.
thematically, it's like
It's amazing.
quick references and punchlines.
Basically, all DDK's social media is him doing weird gymnastics moves and then rapping about Quake. So,
He's in good shape though.
yeah, I mean, he keeps tearing like his fucking rotator cuffs or whatever. But aside from that, I guess.
Cuff's gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I
that's what
te-
is this clip.
I told my rotator cuff having a wank earlier. He's definitely in fucking better shape than me, so good on him.
Let me just find this motherfucker.
Mate, but you already wrecked him. You already wrecked him over this.
Nah,
You
but
might
we
have
need to
deleted
play
it.
this. We need to play it.
Nobody might have deleted
That would
it.
be so sad if he had, but I don't think he has. Like, it probably
What do you
just
mean?
got a
It'd be
lot
so
of
sad
photos
if
on
he
it.
actually responded to the cruel and needless bullying.
Yeah,
from
I'd
his
rather he
friends
just
and
kept it up
colleagues.
and just took it. So if I had to pick between the two, I'd pick that one. There's some shite on here, like a fucking cat using his like Zoe Davina mouse or
I
something.
think
Have
I
you found
got
it?
I think I got it. Is it from like April 2019?
Probably.
Like,
Yeah.
alright, okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, this is it. This is it. Play it. 3, 2, 1.
Right, 3, 2, 1.
Ready? 3, 2,
Yep.
1, go.
Let's go into the session, boys, with the rhythm.
No one on my team, just a railgun and a dream I was running. Gunning, maximizing my cunning as I fight for control while I keep myself low. No sound cues or clues to abuse as I maintain the rules. I choose the best path to invoke my wrath as I'll have the last laugh. But this map won't spare a single resource for me.
That doesn't seem
The
right.
yellow looks free,
Just for
yes, he
me.
baits and waits for me, but I'm smarter than that. I wait to attack, my back won't crack as I set up the trap. It's
that's
only
enough of
way
that, that's
back
enough
as
of
I
that. But here's
chip
the
at
thing
his
that's
stack.
so
No,
much
it's only got 30 seconds left. We're having it all.
As I find what I like as I take back the map.
West
He
side,
can't
isn't
keep pace with my moves and my grace as I climb and I tumble. He falls and he fumbles, desperate for the bubbles.
Like, the best part about it is he doesn't have any of the things you need to be a rapper. Flow, good lyrics.
By the numbers, would like to redact the statements made on the size and shape of DDK's head.
Why, boys? Sick.
That's a bit unreasonable, actually. You know, whatever.
It's so
No, but it's
honestly,
it's that bit where he just goes.
Dan's a good lad. Like, I'm never gonna bang on people for trying to express themselves creatively.
I
Like,
just want to hear a collab
not-
between
yeah.
MC DDK and DJ Vince called "Back in the Game."
no, but here's the thing:
That's the
people
end of
don't
the
realize
sentence.
Vince is a really talented musician.
Oh yes, you can play the bass. That's true.
He can play lots of things. He's pretty good. He's a good all rounder. I wouldn't want to hear a Vince rap, mind. Like, he fucking coming at you with an update. Eating shit is great. It wouldn't really work out. But sorry, Vince, I love you, man. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, DDK's already done it. But no, but a few people have. I mean, people forget Spawn did a single, right? Back in the day, 1.6.
Might have done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a single, but I'm pretty sure he released a song through whatever means it was in 2000.
I remember it was one of those mainstream news pieces where they showed he had like a studio in his house and he used to
All
put
right.
stuff in there. Like,
Fair enough.
So
I mean, remember
that's happened.
Makalele was into beatboxing. Remember?
Yeah, and remember who was it? Was it Bill Mitch? That fucking we just showed the other
Oh
day.
yeah,
like,
he's
the
always singing. He is, mate.
straight voice of an angel. So,
Yeah,
and it was
well, you know.
so release.
Not in the body
listen,
of an angel.
I know you guys don't believe it, but I'm telling you that Red Eye will put out an album at some point now. It's 100%. Like ever since the No Majors Club where he was singing, he's actually warmed up to the idea, and I think we will see the Red Eye album now. Whether it'll be a Christmas album, whether it'll be 90s pop with Red Eye, or I Can't Believe It's Not Red Eye, or whatever's gonna come out. Like, but it's gonna be great. Like honestly, he'll be singing Ace of Base very soon.
Red Eye sings Limp Bizkit's back catalogue. Rolling.
And then it all from the gate.
No, that's
he
He-Man.
was
That was,
playing, Anyway.
That's actually borderline unreasonable, I will admit on that one.
Yeah. No, it's fair.
Still funny.
Anyway,
Still is hilarious.
yeah, of course. Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I actually forgot that part that you put in that by the numbers. I'd forgotten all about this, where someone kept saying, all these fans were like, "Oh, I'm glad that D-Man bit's now." I'm like, "What D-Man bit's are you referring to?" It's the part where we're just straight roasting him for like streaming Football Manager or some shit.
Yeah. No, of course. It became one of our recurring bits for some reason. Like, you know. Anyway, so actor's a bit more difficult. I'm trying to, but you know, Steele went to drama school, didn't he? Didn't he study drama?
Nothing was always in those IEM features and stuff in the Intel
True.
features.
Oh, and one of the maddest skits or bits I've ever seen, like this is like something that should have been on a Redman album. It's fucking insane. Was that one where, what is it, like Henry G got Prius pregnant and Machine's the doctor? Or was it
yes.
Machine and got Prius?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, beyond the summit. I was watching it and they were like scanning Prius's fucking tummy. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it was literally like something out of my fucking nightmares. It was unbelievable. So we've got a lot of people with the clout and the chops.
A few people could be an actor, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even joking when I say this, but actually, like Fallen could fucking do it. Because the thing with him is, first of all, he is very good at being like political and playing.
You're not going to do the two-faced.
No. That's the point. I'm not going to leave that. But he is actually like a mad charismatic person, which is like a quality that you need. You need to have you need to leap off the screen if you're going to be an actor, you know. So he could do that for sure. Yeah,
and for first to hit rehab or make a sex tape. Well, first of all,
that'd be in the commentary fucking.
First of all, I'm pretty sure there's definitely been
rehab
CS players having some leaks and stuff. Now, rehab's an interesting one. I don't think I can't think of anybody in the scene that has been. There's definitely people who should have been to rehab, but I can't think
No, what people don't understand is
who's actually been.
Like, first of all, the problem with esports actually is much like rock and roll is a good analogy. It's just the sort of circuit where if people have bad habits, it's actually too easy to maintain them and not get them ever checked. So the problem is, in the world where you're not like a fucking massive celebrity, etc., those people get forced to go to rehab. Most of them don't go out of choice. So if you're just like, you've just got a bad habit that's mildly ruining, like, you're probably never going to go because out of choice, you're not just going to go yourself, are you?
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, you will see someone. I think things you're going to see in the next year or certainly by 2021, you're going to see probably like some fucking Counter-Strike player come out with some like admission of an addiction, you know, a substance abuse problem. These are my bold predictions, and you'll probably see like if none of you've seen Dr. Disrespect doing that crossover with the Undertaker and wrestling, you'll see some sort of mad like mainstream sports crossover with a big CS star. You know, like maybe a Simple or a Zewu or an NA player or something. I think that's coming. I always think they're missing a trick not having like Ezekiel Elliott or something hanging out with Complexity, if that's a realistic possibility.
Oh, of course.
That would just make that team pop off forever, you know. Anyway, Sunmade Raisins. Is the French scene the Arsenal of CS? Plays good, but ultimately given a good, unexpected fisting. I mean, if you've been following the football season in the Premier League, obviously Arsenal are, you know, I wouldn't even say they're necessarily playing all that good.
I don't even know the French scene is that good. Like, I have to say right now, in reality, the French scene is this. There's two players. There's Kenny S and Zebu, they're sick players. Everyone else, I mean, the rest of Vitality is not even that good. And the rest of the good players in G2 were the fucking Serbians. So I actually feel like the French scene has jumped the shark so hard, it's ridiculous. Think about what it took to bring the French scene back. They just had to get what, as you said last episode, a potential GOAT fucking candidate who in his first year could win player of the year in the entire game. And that didn't even bring them close to being number one in the world, by the way. Like, they were maybe number 3 at best. So if it takes that, I think that's actually an indictment of your scene. Yeah. You know, that actually suggests your scene is shit.
But then again, I mean, sometimes it's like when you bottom out, you will get that like, you know, new wave of players coming through. I mean, it's possible. But yeah, I agree. I think I don't even think the French scene is an Arsenal right now. You know,
that's too good for them.
Yeah. You know, they're not quite Norwich.
They're more like fucking Middlesbrough, Matt. Sunderland.
Come on, now you're going insane. But yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, like I think they're not really playing great fundamental Counter-Strike right now. You know, we're talking about vitality. G2 had to go international to kind of like, you know, and let's be real, the best things about G2, with the exception of Kenny S being back to who he can be, has been the arrival of Hunter and Nexa. It's got nothing to do with French CS, so or very little.
Which, by the way, has also probably sealed the fact that they'll never go back to being all French now, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I don't think.
Why would you?
And listen, well, you know, you've tore the band-aid off finally. It's something that needed to happen a while. Listen, I love all the French players, but like if you wanna maximize your opportunities here in an international sport, learn English. Like it's just where it's at now. Make sure you can communicate internationally. You know, what's the excuse? Put the time in and maximize your options. And you know, it's paid dividends over at G2. Mike, feed me. Any word on whether the NMC will be allowed to go ahead for the Brazil Major? So obviously this is the stream that we do, the alternative stream, the No Majors Club. A little bit of doubt has been cast over it because we were told that obviously by Valve, it's at the behest of the tournament organizer whether or not you can be a secondary stream, and to be a secondary stream you would have to apply for official partnership. Now I've had preliminary talks with ESL. I reached out to them very early on after the news, and I did say, like, you know, I want to do it. It'd be great if you could make us one of your official partners for the event. We're at the stage now where I'm probably going to know in the next week or two as to whether or not we're going to be allowed to be a stream and what that would look like and what it would entail, you know, what we would need to do for ESL to get that partnership. But Sam said he had ideas where if we weren't granted that status, we could still do the NMC. It just might be more like a Joe Rogan type, you know, fight.
You just don't show the screen and they have to
we
sync it
don't
up.
show.
There'll always be a way, I'm sure.
Yeah, so we'll exist in some form or another. I will add the effort that goes into it. You know, if it turns out that people don't want to watch it, if it's not a gameplay stream and the numbers are poor and it's like sort of a waste of everyone's time, you know, we'd pull the plug on it real quick, like, because it just you have to get so many people up at weird times of the day and organize everything and graphics and overlays, and you know, we won't do it if it's like 5 people watching or whatever, but we'll give it a go. We'll give it a college try, and that's even if it was denied, which I don't think it necessarily would be. So, and obviously me and Thorin not going to be in Brazil, so the No Majors Club rides again. Alice the Alchemist. Hey Rich, do you and Thorin feel that super edgy esports talk shows like the old Unfiltered podcast would be considered too unsavory in the current climate of stupid community backlash to be revived? It feels like, unlike by the numbers, there aren't any shows with guests like yourself and Thorin that are able to rise above all the Reddit idiots and Twitter morons and worry about the consequences. Well, I mean, listen, this is all you need to look at, right? Think about how many hours of streamed content I've done since 2010. Think about how many podcasts I've been on. I was on a podcast at 4:30 a.m. this morning with my friend Panda TV talking about Blizzard on a World of Warcraft podcast. You know, I'm putting myself out there all the time. Yet, while going through a, you know, personal fucking tragedy and trying to deal with it as best I can, that isn't even 3 months old. I went on a show inebriated, didn't get asked to leave by the host or the co-host, was essentially left there to just be a miserable mess. And that apparently means that, first of all, I have an alcohol problem because I was drunk, you know, once under exceptional circumstances. 2, there has been like very little empathy sort of offered by the broader community. Just like, you fucking ruin every podcast you're on. Get invited on all of them all the time religiously. Get invited on new podcasts that just start up, do those shows. No one has any issues with it. And also as well, I have to be ultra, you know, mindful about the one thing you say, like, that's even vaguely wrong or vaguely edgy. It just lives forever in the minds of people. But the fucking, you know, 4,000 hours of podcast material you do, you know, the rest of the year, none of that sort of gets took into consideration. So this is why there is no benefit to speaking your mind. There really isn't. There is no benefit to it at all. In fact, if you look at all the big influencers, that what they do is they like to hide behind expressing their opinions on the basis that it's brand safe. Well, listen, I've been my own brand for 10 years minimum. You know, I don't want to necessarily sacrifice that just to get a little bit more money or a large cut of the viewership or be pushed by Twitch a little bit more. You know, I am what I am. I stay true to myself. In a time when people try and monetize authenticity, the reality is as soon as you start talking about, can you be more authentic? Can we monetize authenticity? Well, it's not authentic at that juncture, is it? You know, you either like me and what I have to say or you don't. I am the product, but I'm not going to lie to people, and I'm not going to fucking, you know, push a fake version of myself to make more money. I'm not interested in that. I'd rather fucking just, you know, die. It's just a waste of time. Like, what, you live your life as a fake and a fraud and a phony. Like, it's okay for some people. If you want to do that to make money, have at it. I don't. So, yeah, Unfiltered, I mean, there's a reason I think Chaman took a lot of
that
the
almost
down.
should not have existed when I look back now. Like, it
Yeah,
just
no.
we didn't know at the time because no one could, but it just pointlessly endangered loads of people's careers in a way that at the time seemed like banter, because you have to remember, when that show was at its prime was when everyone had like 1,000 Twitter followers and there was nobody on social media. So there was nobody to be outraged. Whereas the problem, what we didn't know, is that the things you said then still count now in 2020. So when I look back now, no joke, that show basically not only shouldn't have existed, but was in a perfect sweet spot where it even could exist.
Oh yeah, and just think about this. I mean, the absurd dramas that would come out of Unfiltered. Like, why is somebody disconnecting from a Skype call a big drama? But like, that's literally what happened to you, right? I mean, you were
That wasn't
working on
Unfiltered.
games.
That was a different one. That was,
Oh, was
that
it a
was
different
some other.
one?
That was that one that we did with, who's that guy from StarCraft who was your mate? What was his name? Fuck,
Like,
you remember the guy who? Yeah, like, and there we go. That was it.
Yeah.
It was a similar concept, though. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, so yeah, but like, okay, so why is this This is how stupid it is.
I know.
So Duncan got fucking mad triggered by a call, and rightly so, actually, because we've been live for 40 minutes without even knowing or something. Like, we were just doing the pre-show build-up and liking it and streamed it, which he acknowledged was a mistake. Like, always let people know when they're on air. Like, rule number one of doing a broadcast. So Duncan was like, this is just, and I think the conversation, he was already fucking annoyed about that, and then the conversation went to a stupid place, and you know, Duncan like just disconnected from the call and said, I can't be doing this anymore.
Just thought, fuck it, yeah.
Yeah, just fuck it. So he just left. So I don't understand why you leaving a call. I mean, imagine this as well. Like, I've been bombarded and told to kill myself because I didn't disconnect from the Trainwrecks podcast. I've had people like, you know, utilizing my friend's death against me and stuff, and sending me some really uncool things because I didn't leave a podcast. Well, if I'd left the podcast, we all know what would have happened. The drama would have been Richard Lewis drunkenly storms off podcast. You can't win.
You can't win on those.
What you have to understand is, like, there are people, like, social media has given everyone the illusion of importance. I say this all the time. It's giving everyone the illusion of substance to their ideas, their feelings, and because it's not just about drama now. It's about how you can insert yourself into the lives of people you're already living vicariously through. Social media is the crowbar within which you can get into their lives, and that's why it's deeply, deeply disturbing, deeply poisonous, and it gives people very unreal perceptions about their life and their connections to the people that they look up to or aspire to be like. The average sports fan that tells a football player that had like a bad game, your shit, you should be dropped out the team, right? Like, you know, you would never interact with that player 10 years ago. You would get to say it on the terraces, and that would be the end of it. Now people honestly think they almost have like a duty to themselves to go out and say things to people, and that they can shape events, and that they're involved. And it's like, you're not involved. You're not talking to these people. They don't care about you. They don't care about you. You don't matter. You don't exist to these people, nor should you. You are just a regular person. Live your life. Be interested in the things that matter to you. So unfortunately, what you get with these podcasts and these shows is people literally sit there waiting for a clip. They wait for a clip, and then they go on a Twitter account and they try and blow the clip up as much as they can, and they post it on Reddit, and they lie about it, and they spin it, and they try and get retweets, and then they sit on a Discord with their equally loser friends and spam this, let's get it around, and then they send it out, and they tag journalists and they tag everyone. You know, they're doing this because this is what passes for a life. This is their ticket to the big show. They can't create anything. They can't make anything themselves. They don't have anything to contribute. It's basically tear down culture, like, writ large, in a digital format. So no, Unfiltered would be an unmitigated disaster. And in fact, I've said it many times, I'm amazed that one of these fucking pathetic games journalists hasn't gone through some of the old episodes of Unfiltered, wrecked Destiny, wrecked me, wrecked Chanman for no reason, wrecked Thorin, and just wrecked Robert All, and wrecked, every guest that's
There's a lot of OGs you could get on that show.
Oh yeah, you could. We all know that the games press want to throw out all of the people that built esports so they can like push their cronies into positions. They've done it in the games industry. They've done. You need to hire this person. You need to hire this person. If you hire this person and give them a job, we'll stop writing bad things about you. They're trying to do that with esports too now that it's a big industry. So we all know that they could do it. I'm amazed they haven't. It just shows how lazy and poorly informed they are that they haven't done it. But they'll get round to it, and those podcasts will be a millstone around our neck. Just on that note, to wrap it up, go look at what Nick Cave said. Obviously, Nick Cave from Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, actor, musician. He actually had a great quote today. I will read it in its entirety, just so you get it. Let me just find it for you. So he was asked in an interview whether or not he would change some of his problematic lyrics from some of his songs that are like 20 or 30 years old. He said, and this is what he said to it. He said, "What songwriter could have predicted 30 years ago that the future would lose its sense of humor, its sense of playfulness, its sense of context, nuance, and irony, and fall into the hands of a perpetually pissed off coterie of pearl clutchers?" Well, he's absolutely right, and sadly, that's the reality we live in online, in digital spaces, in a much more profound way. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Anything to add? Or are you good?
No, I think, like I said, basically, it just should never have existed as a show. Unfortunately, knowing what we know now, at the time, it was great fun. It was actually a brilliant way to let off steam back then. But unfortunately, it's as the old saying goes: "This is why we can't have nice things."
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And at a time when people clamor for authenticity, isn't it great that anytime anyone has an authentic human moment, you weaponize it against them? So honestly, I know that like you might not want to hear this. The problem is you. It's you at home. It's how you live. I try not to do it anymore. I don't quote tweet people when they say stupid things. I was talking about it with DJ Wheat the other day. What's wrong with a stupid tweet? What's wrong with a take that you disagree with? A hot take? Yeah, nice hot take, idiot. Like I'm trying not to dunk on people anymore unless they're spreading dangerous misinformation. Because what is it like? Why can't people have the wrong opinion anymore? What's wrong with that? It used to be that, you had opinions and you expressed opinions. Unfortunately, what you guys like to do is you like to take that hot take and blow it up as something more sinister. Maybe someone's poorly informed. Like for example, we talked about Makalele earlier. What's wrong? Yeah, all right, Makalele is like, what, space is a lie, flat earth. Who gives a fuck, honestly? Like, why are we arguing about with flat earthers? They're objectively wrong, but just let them. It's like a harmless lie, right? Like, who gives a fuck? When people like take that tweet and dunk on it all day, there's nothing dangerous about it. It's just silly. And I think we're losing a lot of ourselves where what you want to do is kind of like, you want to, it's not even about cancel culture at this point. It is just about like smashing anybody down so you can just kind of feel involved in a world that really doesn't involve you. You having a Twitter.
It's almost like the social equivalent of Reddit. The prevailing consensus opinion must destroy all other opinions and rid them from the land. Whereas I hope people would understand, at least when I was a boy, like actually, in fact, in Britain, we even have a culture of this. We tolerate eccentric people because we understand they add color to the village, to the fucking culture, whatever it might be. So even if they're really wacky people, like conspiracy theorists, it actually is fun to have those people around. They're not as dangerous as people imply. That's the problem. Yeah.
So yeah, everyone's like that, Oh, give me authentic. Tell me what you really think. You tell them what they really think. Fucking hell, you really think that, do you? Like, I saw a quote the other day, and this is definitely the end of the topic. It was the internet is a great place to share your opinions if you have the same opinion as everyone else.
There you go.
And that's it. That's all you need to know. Right, okay, shout out to our patrons. They're the people who ask the questions. Remember, if you give $50 or more, you get to ask a question and shape the show and drag it out to 3 hours long and Lord of the Rings, etc., etc. So we give a shout out to our patrons. In fact, no, we end on the patrons, don't we? So I'll give a shout out to our sponsor, .com. Obviously a great sponsor. We talked about them earlier. They're going to be letting me know what their new offer on the website is going to be very, very soon. But in the meantime, if you don't have an account over there, you just go over .com/RLS. If you go and sign up there, it shows that you come from this show, and knowing that you're supporting them because they support me, and that really helps everything that we do. And obviously our patrons that brought it back from the dead. $100 patrons, Jerky's Mini and Alice the Alchemist, Madams and Rekovic on Steam, and our $50 patrons, Benakagi Assassin, Butt Pounder 420, Carve, Colin Penny, Flacksmith, J-Dubs, Jice, Lipscomb Davis, Madsen, Marcus Kiumpar, Mike Feed Me, Nikolai Lundgreen, Sard Sawar, Some Made Raisins, TC Owens, Tobias Bernasconi, and Watchdoge. That was by the numbers. We'll be back sometime next week, probably. Thorin's working schedule.
I'll have to figure out my schedule.
Yeah, notwithstanding. We'll keep you posted. Stay tuned to Twitter. And until we see you, take care of yourselves.